to get started? Okay, I'll call the Inland Wetland Commission meeting on April 24th to order. You got it. Okay. The agenda. The time now is 7:07. Let's start with introduction. We'll start. Laura, why don't you start and walk the way over.
Laura Ferguson, Commissioner.
Greg Johnston, Vice Chair.
Pat Paracord, Chairman.
Danielle Monroe, alternate commissioner.
Nicholas Jordan, Commissioner.
Kevin.
Kevin Seaman, Commissioner.
James, you want to introduce yourself?
James DeMeo, professional engineer, Town of Bethel.
David Coleman, the wetlands agent.
Mary Churchill, recording secretary.
Great. All right. Thank you. So the first thing we have on the agenda is public hearing for 185 Grassy Plain Street. So at this time I will open the public hearing for 185 Grassy Plain Street.
You want to read the legal notice?
Sure. Thank you.
Greg has both of those, Mr. Chairman.
Great.
Sure, I'll start with the legal notice and then we can do the public notice.
Okay.
Legal notice, Bethel Inland Wetlands Commission will hold a public hearing on April 24th, 2023, 7 p.m. in meeting room D of the Bethel Municipal Center and via Zoom web-based video conferencing to consider the following. JAR Associates LLC 185 Grassy Plain Street. Regulated activities, construction of a 1,700 foot and 80,000 square foot buildings, associated improvements. At this hearing, interested persons may be heard and or submit written comments. Comments may be also be sent via regular mail or email. Email to the Land Use Department at Bethel's ct.gov. Hard copies and applications and materials are available for review in the Bethel Land Use Department and via hyperlink via the town website. Dated this the 12th of April, Bethel, Connecticut, Pat Paracord, Inland Wetlands Commission Chair. So the public notice, basically the same exact wording. Except at the end, we have all at this hearing, interested persons may be heard or submit written comments. Same thing. Dated the 12th, Pat Paracord.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Peter Olson. I'm an attorney with an office here in Bethel at 275 Greenwood Avenue. My firm name is Land Use and Conservation Council. I'm here tonight on behalf of JAR Associates LLC, who is the owner of the property at 185 Grassy Plain. It is located in the Francis Clark Industrial Park, and it is the first building that you see on the left as you pull into the park. We sent notices of this public hearing to people within the required distance.
Thank you.
One of them came back. We're required to send them to the addresses on the assessor's records, so they're not always up to date. I actually did one of these in Newtown recently and had to send notice to the United States Postal Service, and it was returned addressing unknown.
That's good.
So the property is currently improved with about a 70,000 square foot industrial building. It used to house Burndy Corporation. And these just happen to be lying on the side from our preliminary meeting with staff. So I put them up here. You can see the building in the old configuration on this plan right here. And on this plan over here. We recently received approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission for a 15,000 square foot addition to the existing building between the building and the street, connected to it by a small walkway. So it's all part of one building. And we're in the process of designing those building plans and submitting it. So now we're ready to move to the next step, which is 2 additional buildings on the site. One of them will be located a little further south along the street frontage, and Dinus will show you on the plans. That would be about 80,000 square feet. And one of them will be located on the corner as you come into Francis Clark Park. We're really not going to talk about that tonight because it's a long way away from any wetlands down here. The issue with the building to the south that we're going to talk primarily about tonight is there's a large amount of rock removal and tree removal that needs to be done in order to build the building. And while we are talking with people now about tenancies, we want to be able to say to them, we're ready to go. We've cleared the site and we're ready to put a shovel in the ground for your building. So we're here tonight, even though we don't have a tenant, we're not ready to put the building up tomorrow, but we are ready to do the site work associated with the building. And that'll really shortcut that time frame. When we talk to somebody, we don't want to have to say to them, we can give you this site, but it'll take us 2 years to get it. That's not the best for marketing. So I'm going to turn it over to Dinas Verbickas, our project engineer, and let him go through the plans. And then after Dinas, we'll have Jim McManus talk about the wetlands on the site and some of the biology issues associated with it. Thanks.
Good evening. For the record, Dinas Verbickas, professional engineer with Artel Engineering Group on behalf of the applicant.
What page do you have up, Dinas?
Right now, this is page 2 in the set, should be the land survey. It's prepared by Sydney A. Rapp Land Surveying right here in Bethel. And as you'll look at the map, you'll note the property itself is about 20.7 acres. And as described by Attorney Olson, sits proud on top of the hill as you enter into the park. So as you're driving into the park on the left-hand side at the top of the hill. And as Attorney Olson also had noted, we recently did gain approval for an addition to the building located immediately adjacent to the west side of the existing building. So between the building and the road itself. I have highlighted for you at the extreme south end of the property, the wetlands that exist on the property. And a little difficult to see, probably easier to see on the screen. The topography you'll note in this southern portion of the property where we're proposing to do the work is quite undulating, rising and falling by about 30 to 40 feet, depending on where you are. So basically, from the road, as you come inward for the first 150 feet or so, maybe even more, it rises up to a ridge. And then once it hits the ridge, it starts descending back down towards Grassy Plain Street. Associated with this existing building, it's about 150 parking spaces situated in and around the building itself, as well as on the south side of the building. In a large version, I flipped to the next page of the survey, which is the improvement location survey, slightly larger scale of the existing building, and bringing a little bit more to detail the parking that's located on the north face of the building, on the east face, and then on the south face of the existing building. Now come to the overall site plan. The overall site plan shows what we wish to do on the property. And again, for reference point, in the center of the property itself is the existing building. To the west of it is the proposed 15,000 square foot, give or take, addition that was recently approved through Planning and Zoning Commission. At the extreme north end, we've got a building that's proposed here, but again, this is kind of far removed from about as far as you can get from the wetland on the property. Plus, it's completely downhill, so no way, no how would it impact that wetland on site. So we're going to focus primarily on the southern end of the site, and as you'll see here, again, roughly 80,000 square foot building that has been proposed in and around this building. We have proposed 110 parking spaces, 109 parking spaces, basically set around the periphery of the building. Some spaces on the north side, a bunch of spaces on the west side, and then the lion's share of the parking spaces on the east side of the building. On the east side of the building is where we envision, we'll have loading docks for the, call the business end of things, or an industrial type use. And the office spaces we envision would be in the front portions of the building. Basically trying to set things up and in the future, hope that they'll function the same way as the existing building on site. So we are in proposing to do what we're doing. We are going to be coming a little close to the wetlands at the south end. At the point of reference, again, the wetlands is in this area here. Note a darker line surrounding that wetland. That's a 100-foot regulated area. So we're looking primarily at that space. So what are we doing within this regulated area? Well, we're proposing to put a driveway that we've wrapped around the building for purposes of ease of access for both workers as well as visitors, plus for truck deliveries and the like, and most importantly for emergency apparatus to make their way around the entire building. So in addition to the driveway and loading space that we proposed in this and several parking spaces, there is some grading that'll be associated with that. So the grading is, in this particular instance, for the most part, will be cutting into the hillside and filling a little bit down in the back of the building. I'll flip now to an overall grading and utility plan, which should help shed a little bit more light on what it is we're proposing. So this is just an enlarged version of the drawing that we were just looking at. Or excuse me, no, it's not. It's the same drawing with topography on it. Apologize for that. And again, I've highlighted the wetland area and then the 100-foot offset. And you'll note we've got, again, some asphalt proposed in the area and then cutting. And that would be basically on the opposite side of this ridge of rock hillside that separates Francis Clark Circle from the Grassy Plain Street side of the site. So basically cutting in this area, and again, a fill of about 2 feet to 3 feet in this area here. Our nearest point to the wetland from our proposed work is about 15 feet at this absolute nearest point. And then the next nearest point would be about 25 feet as you go a little bit further to the west. But again, primarily what we're doing here is cutting out and removing the anticipated rock and earth material on the site. As we have proposed, and as with most developments, what is required is stormwater management. So a bit of work, although outside of the wetland area, would be a large open area detention basin to which we'll direct our stormwater. That stormwater enters into the basin and then it is metered out through a pipe centrally located, discharging where current stormwater from the site discharges. So we're trying to maintain existing drainage patterns. When developed, we've sized our detention basins. When the site is developed, as we've got proposed, we'll actually be reducing the rate of runoff. Not necessarily the amount of runoff, but the rate that the water runs from our site off-site. In association with what we've proposed for our site development, we've included some buffer planting. And so here we are, again, now a much larger version, in large view. And you'll note right along where my finger is running is the wetlands that exists on the property. Here is our proposed cut in this southwestern corner of the site. And then here's our proposed fill for the driveway right in along here. And in between where we're filling and cutting and through the wetlands, we propose a sizable mitigation or buffer area planting to that wetland. And the primary function of that is to provide some additional habitat and buffering from the development that is proposed on site. The building itself, as all the buildings on or in the corporate park, will be provided services by municipal water and municipal sewer. And of course, we're left here to manage our stormwater, to which we will be reducing the rate of runoff from the site once developed as proposed. I think I'll keep it light.
Thank you,
That.
Dennis.
Pass it along to Jim McManus, our soil scientist. And then at the end, we can answer any questions that you or the audience might have. Thank you.
Dan, can you go back to your first? Zach,
Oh, yeah.
not a problem, the wrap, sorry about that. Yeah, I just want to use that. We'll go with something.
Okay.
On the screen. Perfect. Good evening, all. Jim McManus, certified professional soil scientist with Gem and Wetland Consulting Services. The office is in Newtown. I was on the site in November of 22 to flag the wetland. Just for a little background, I think, I'm not sure who was here, but back in 13, I was here for some contamination. And I did a wetland flagging for them and then a small report, but that was it because everything was out of the wetlands and they did, and we can get into that later, but they just did a little, they did what they did, the LEPs did. So I've been on the site since 13. Now I'm back and it's same site, but it's a little bit different. We'll get into what's different. The wetland itself is in the southern part of the site. It's a mixture of in the southern part of the wetland. Right down in here, and as you move south off site, it's a shallow marsh, but it's dominated by Phragmites. It's choked with Phragmites. And then as you move north, it's more of a mix of shrub, mainly forested swamp, but very disturbed. I noted in and around the wetlands, soil piles, things like that. I mean, it's an industrial site. It's always been. And so in and around here and this whole area, what I wanted to put this map up, in and around this area here is right now where they did their work is kind of maintained as lawn. Back in 13, it was a mix of open sandy areas and a lot of autumn olive. Now it's sort of a lawny area. And then as you go, can you slide now, Dave, to the right? Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Stop. So if you go out there now, you're going to see, as I'm out exactly, because as you come down, this is wooded upland woods with a bedrock outcrop dominated hillside. And as you come down, you come out of the woods that are relatively open to a very dense area dominated by olive, starts to pick up lots of bittersweet, Japanese barberry, things of that nature, rose bush. And as you get to the wetlands, you pick up, it's still in the wetlands, but obviously not as much. But as you swing here and as you swing along, probably along the middle of this or just shy of this, this is all autumn olive. choked with autumn olive, and then it goes right into the wooded hillside. And then down on this side is choked with autumn olive as you go into the wooded sloped area here. And then mainly this area here, kind of in this area here, right where the basin is designed, is right now maintained as lawn or maintained as like a meadow. It's mowed. I was there today. And then the wetlands themselves, like I said, is, though the southern part is not bad, it's choked with phragmites. I mean, it is a shallow marsh. It does have semi-permanently flooded area, which just happens to be a lot of dominated by a lot of undesirable species. We're not proposing to do any work in the wetlands at all. We're mainly focusing our attention on buffer, the upland review area, with the planting plan and other things. I did do a functionality assessment. The wetlands come up with about 4 principal functions. Groundwater recharge, discharge, no secret there. We're on a bedrock controlled slope. All the infiltration, all the water comes off these steep slopes right into this depressional area. You get the discharge in your recharge. The other one was sediment, toxic pathogen retention, no secret there. Nutrient removal, no secret there, and some wildlife habitat for sure. Why there's only 4, mainly because the disturbed nature of the resource itself. The site is the industrial park. It's surrounded by other industrial structures and roads and such, plus the main drag, Grassy Plain Road or street. It's relatively isolated, though it does have some forested scrub and shallow marsh. It is disturbed and choked with invasives, especially along the southern part. Again, evidence of soil disturbance. You'll see that if you ever visit the site, you'll see the soil. It's little small soil piles, things like that. That's not, Mother Nature didn't do that. And one note is as you go, so the on-site wetland has some issues, but as you move further south, the wetland does get better. So if you were to include further south down, it probably would improve some of the functionality, but it's adjacent to the development. Kind of get what you get. You don't get upset, as my teachers used to, my preschool teachers used to tell my kids. Back in 13, if the folks that were here will remember, we do have an NDDB hit. It's essentially a butterfly that uses limestone soils. We have limestone soils adjacent to the site. I'm assuming that they're on site. And they use outcrops and other items that deal with limestone soils and rocks. The plants that the caterpillars use only grow in limestone soils. It's round leaf ragwort, one of the main plants that they use to deposit their eggs. And then when the caterpillars hatch, they eat the leaves, and then the whole process starts all over. And we're in the process now of getting a biologist that has a little bit more expertise than I do to discuss that. We're in the process of, since it was back in 13, we're in the process right now of notifying NDDB to come back with a new letter. And but one thing I will mention is our intention is to use the soils that are on site. So if they are limestone derived, they're not going anywhere. So we're going to separate the topsoil. We're going to use the subsoil that's on site. We top dress with the topsoil, and then you'll have the soils that are on site. So we do have these plants, or we develop habitat for these plants. We'll be using the soils that are on site. And if we have to bring anything in, it will either come from another limestone site or be properly nutrients properly added to the soil to produce the characteristics and the result that we're looking for. So I really don't want to talk too much more about that, other than we're in the process of dealing with that.
Jim, how will the red leaf ragwort be affected by the removal of the invasives, the autumn olive?
Well, yeah, one thing I should mention is one of the problems with this particular plant is it's being choked out mainly by non-native plants. And the culprits are autumn olive, the bittersweet, the rose. And one thing I didn't mention was that's the caterpillar, but the butterflies use nectar plants, yarrow, and other types of wildflowers as part of their life cycle. You know, the caterpillar sticks on this rough round leaf ragwort, but the butterfly itself goes all over the place. So these invasives are shading these items out, and we're losing those plants. So the butterfly needs to move or it disappears. And that's why it's on the list here in Connecticut. It's on the list in New York. It's on the list in Jersey. It's mainly due to the habitat is being kind of eliminated through non-native introductions. And certainly, again, I don't want to step too far out, but we're going to be eliminating a lot of our autumn olive just from the development, which will open up some room, hopefully, for some mitigation. But we'll get into that later.
Jim, what was the name of the butterfly?
It's called the Northern Meadow Lark. Meadow Mark. Meadow Mark. Northern Meadow Mark. Yes.
Thank you, Jim. Dave, can you throw the plan back up on the screen? Sure. I just want to talk briefly about the ELUR area. ELUR stands for Environmental Land Use Restriction. Essentially, this area is an area that was polluted soil from when Burndy operated the property. When my client bought the property from Burndy, they were required to complete remediation. It's some kind of sand from the casting process from many years ago. They just dumped it out the backyard. I don't know what's there, Jim. You said it was something pretty nasty, but what they did, so it's this area right here is the area of the ELUR. The pollution area doesn't cover the whole thing, but it's definitely a significant area there. What they did to resolve the remediation was put a cap on it. So what that means is that we're free to use the property for anything but basically residential uses on top. We could put a parking lot over it, we could do something like that. But if we dig into it, we have to remediate. So David, I need you to scroll down to one of the site plans. Next one. There we go. So Dinus tells me that our parking lot has a grade change of about 8 feet. Right, Dinus?
Yeah, 8 to 12.
And we have a detention basin here. That's how deep, Dinus?
It goes in about 4 feet.
So both of those are absolutely going to count as digging into the remedial area. So what does that mean? That means we have to go remediate that to do this construction. The process in Connecticut is largely privatized. We hire a licensed environmental professional, LEP, and he prepares a plan, or she prepares a plan, a remedial action plan. We implement it. We file documents with the state saying we've implemented it, and we move on. So we have not developed that plan yet, but that's how the remediation will be handled. It will be removed. So hopefully that's better for the wetlands when we're all done, and essentially that one. So that's really all we wanted to present tonight. As Jim said, we're still in the process of engaging a biologist. They're all very busy people, but we want to make sure we correctly analyze the butterfly issue and figure out where we can adequately put plantings and remove invasives to do the best we can to enhance that habitat. We don't have a report from the town engineer yet, but our planning and zoning public hearing isn't until May 23rd. So he's probably thinking he has plenty of time, right, James? And we got a report from your staff tonight that we'll take a look at and figure out how we can respond to. So happy to answer any questions you have. If you want to set up a site walk, that would be fine. Figure out when we can do it and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave, do you have any comments?
I do, Mr. Chairman, and I will keep them light in the spirit of the comments that you've heard from the applicant. Mr. Verbickas, would you mind if I used your easel as part of my presentation? Okay, and then Mary, I'll just have you scroll through and just follow with the cursor where I am on the plans. Okay, so let me get this up here first now. I gotta find it. Just lock. Yes, there we go. Okay. We're gonna go all the way down to the bottom. So Mary, what I'm gonna have you do is. When I said a word, I'll have you scroll between this sheet here and then this sheet here at the bottom.
Okay.
Okay. So let's start in on this. So the plan that I'm pulling up on the screen right now is one that Mr. Rebickus has not yet discussed with you guys, and that is the existing conditions hydrology plan. Normally, I don't dive into these, but I think with the confluence of all of the uncommon factors that you have here at this site, I think it's worth giving you guys some context. So yes, as the applicants have mentioned, most of what's going on in this site is going to be irrelevant to you, i.e. what's going on over here along the entrance to Francis J. Clark Circle, what's going on with the improvements in this area over here. Where you're going to be focusing is your primary focus, obviously, is where they've mentioned with what's going on in the upland review area, which this plan I have on the screen doesn't show. And then secondary would be what's going on in this drainage area 4. When I say this parcel is a confluence of things, confluence Venn diagram, however you want to parse it, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. You have a regulated wetlands area. You have this property is an industrial site, which you guys normally don't see very often. Most of the applications you get are either residential or commercial. You have the NDDB component that Mr. McManus explained, and then you have the environmental land use restriction, ELUR, that Attorney Olson went into. These are all important because they all happen in one area where they're all common, and that's this drainage area 4. I focus on this because it's the drainage area that's right next to the on-site wetlands. So for you, you're going to want to know what's going on with the surface and groundwater in this area, where it's being directed to, how it is now. These are the existing conditions. So Mary, if you don't mind scrolling down for me. Okay. This looks really involved, so we're not going to get into this in depth by any means, but I think it's just where I think it's just a dog ear that you guys should put in your notes to take a look at this and have it come up as a resurface as a point of discussion when this public hearing gets continued. So I just figured I would put that in there for now. Let's go zoom. Okay, go back to the main screen and then I'll go to myself here. Where is the actually, you know what? Yeah, while I find that, we got into the staff report that Attorney Olson mentioned too. I did just come out with that today. It's uncommon that I take so long to get this to you, but this is a pretty involved application. You guys know we've had a lot of applications come forth, you guys. So that's why my delivery of this is coming to you so late. I do have copies for you guys if you're interested. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Chairman, if you would like, I can give you guys a minute to cruise this over. Nothing heavy at all. But if there's anything you want to just take a look at, just let me know.
If we have a minute, yeah.
I'll take the cover sheet. I got this part.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
I'll take it.
Oh, okay.
I'll take whatever you got.
Okay. I'd be happy to send this to you guys electronically.
Yeah, that's fine too.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. And I know you're kind of at the disadvantage right now, Mr. Seaman. But I assure you, when the public hearing for this gets continued, which is what I would recommend the commission to do. It'll be in the Google Drive in advance for the next meeting, and you should have ample time to read and review it. It's about 15, roughly 15 pages total of material to go through. So I'll give you guys a minute if you guys want, or I can just continue to.
In a minute. sorry.
Okay, no problem.
What is it? Yes.
Can you prepare this tool deck,
That tool is based on
Plan that was
template from Ed Pollack. He's a soil scientist.
are these your comments?
Yes, those comments are mine, yes.
That's the work tool thing, the Pollock tool, right?
That's correct.
These are the. And then your comments.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, understood. Oh, yes. No, no. Oh, right, yes.
That plan is a backup plan.
Okay, yes, thank you. Okay.
Jersey.
Let's grab it to all. Everybody's done reading my. That's correct.
Master.
I guess that. Good question, Grace.
This application.
Thanks.
Yeah, we adjust that.
Not the same. That's terrible.
Sorry, Kevin,
Virtual Kevin.
we miss you.
Everybody ready?
Sure, I'll need about a month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I really don't want to get into any heavy lifting tonight. This is just again another dog ear thing. This is the report from 2013 that Mr. McManus mentioned. He was giving his testimony. They are required to actually give you guys an update because that statement was for the ELUR work. Now they have to provide another one for what they're doing with this application. So looking forward to what the biologist and the NEDB report, which are two separate things, give to you. I also would have given you the ELUR documentation that was filed down in the clerk's office. If the applicant's okay with that, I would like to have that added for the record.
You already put it in the Google Drive.
Oh, okay, cool. I forgot I did that. I think that's also worth a read. I don't want to dive into the legalese. At the risk of having my brain get fried. But I think it's worth you guys taking a look into that as well. Where was I? Other things that you guys are going to want to consider as part of reviewing this application, most of which I get into, apart from some housekeeping things in the report. The ELUR, obviously, methods of rock removal, how the applicant intends to do that, if they're going to be doing machine work, if they're going to be using blasting, the groundwater hydrology, which I alluded to with the reports that are the drainage map that showed up on the screen, site lighting, if there's going to be any independent light fixtures that surround the driveways or anything off the building itself, areas of steep slopes where they're going to be regrading as a result of the material that gets removed, and the plants. I think it's worth noting that while the northern metal mark butterfly itself is not an obligate species, you're obviously going to want to make sure that the plants that are planted in there are just as conducive as anything else that could get possibly planted in there to not put the ragweed. What's the name of the plant that the
It's a
ragwort?
It's round leaf ragwort.
That is, thank you. That
What
that-
is it, Jim? What does it look like?
It looks like, it frankly looks like
Like a sick black-eyed Susan.
yeah, like a small black-eyed Susan, for lack of a better word. And the caterpillars of butterflies use the plant. The butterfly uses any wildflower for its nectar, for whatever it does.
So obviously, you're going to want to make sure that the plantings that get put in, I don't think it would be the applicant's intent at all, but you want to make sure that those don't put that plant at a disadvantage. When you guys accepted this application, it's worth noting that you accepted it as a public hearing on the basis of potential concerns for significant impacts. So you guys can request an alternative site plan from the applicant. It's in your regulations that you're allowed to do that. You should have ample time for that to get prepared for you, because when you guys also accepted that application, you were going into this public hearing with the premise of not having yet conducted a site walk, as Attorney Olson mentioned. So I would recommend before you continue this public hearing to whenever the next meeting is held, that you schedule that date. Now with us having more daylight hours, we might be able to have that done after close of business or work on a weekday, so whatever works best for you guys. At this point, I don't really have anything else to add. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
No, I think we have to note that Nico just showed us the picture of the plant.
Oh,
So we were-
I was just showing a picture of the round leaf ragwort. What
In case anyone wanted to know what we were looking at. the laptop for.
Okay, so why don't I put that up on the shared screen, Mr. Jordan?
If I can just respond to a couple things
Yeah.
from Mr. McCollum's comments. Diane, can you talk a little bit about how your plan respects the division of water along those watersheds, in terms of what gets continued to go down to the wetlands, what goes to the basin, et cetera?
You know, it might be easier if I prepare a map to show it a little better,
Okay,
because right now it's a bit onerous to describe. But if I-
To that point, is it possible the map that Dave showed think it was, yeah, Dave showed with the,
Drainage shed lines.
with the development part of it, but not the existing, the after development.
Mhm.
Can we take the, like, overlay of the buildings and stuff out and just show the contour of the property?
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Get some of the busyness out of there, like the the building off, all that, so we could just see the product, the contour lines, basically.
Okay.
Are you talking about the site hydrology or
Yeah.
the topography and hydrology?
I forget what you called it.
Groundwater hydrology
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, just get the buildings out of it so you can see more. Sorry about
for the
that.
drainage area.
A little bit about the legal standard for decisions. David mentioned that when you accepted this, you scheduled a public hearing. We didn't challenge that. We thought we should have a public hearing, so we didn't ask you to make any findings. One of the bases on which you can have a public hearing that there may be a significant impact on wetlands. When it comes to making your decision, if you find there will be a significant impact on wetlands, we're required to show you feasible improvement alternatives so that you can make a decision that there are no feasible improvement alternatives to the activity. What we submit to you is that there will not be a significant impact on the wetlands, and therefore we do not show you alternatives. And I think those words may and will and shall are all very important. We don't think there's any impact on these wetlands from the activities that we're proposing. And in fact, we're doing no activity in the wetlands at all.
So let me ask-
That's why we haven't prepared a feasible improvement alternative analysis for you.
So let me just ask you, just from a legal perspective, so if we found there was impact to the wetlands, even if you were able to show alternatives and we still felt there was impact, we could deny the application?
You could.
Okay,
If you found there would be a significant impact on the wetlands and you
Right.
found that there were alternatives.
Right.
To that impact, not to the project, but
Right.
to that impact. That's what leads to denials in wetland cases.
Right.
But we don't think there's any impact on the wetlands. And you know, through Dinus and Jim and everybody else we hire, we're gonna show you that there's no impact on the
so
wetlands.
let me ask you a timing question, and Dave, you may be able to answer. I'm just hearing, you know, we still need information on the butterfly, which definitely we want to see, and, you know, finding it for that. Information from another party on the contaminated or the remediated area.
I don't think there's any information you need on that. That's out of your hands. Yeah, number one, there
I
was.
love it when people tell me it's out of my hands.
Yeah, don't worry, don't worry.
I love that part.
But first of all,
Here's
First of
the-
all, Jim was here in 2013 to this
Right.
commission. Probably you, Patrick, and maybe were the only ones that were on
that are here.
at that time, but there was some decision issued at that
But
time.
you have to go
So-
in it and dig, so you're gonna be affecting that, so we're gonna want information on that.
That activity
To be
is
state
100% outside your jurisdiction.
So we don't get information. I think that's a major thing, you're disturbing an area that's.
It's outside
contaminated.
the upland review area.
So what you can see, if I may add.
Yeah.
There was the declaration of environmental land use restriction that I put in the record, and
Okay.
that shows you what was done.
Right,
But you have no influence on how that work gets done. That's the
No.
LEP's job.
right,
Just,
But
I think
now
that's
it's
what
being
Mr. Olson,
disturbed.
Attorney Olson's trying to clarify. I'm
but
sorry.
now it's being disturbed.
Not the wet.
No, but the. Contaminated area, because the
Right, but that-
contaminated area wasn't removed, it was capped,
Well, that's the decision they made to do,
they being,
the LEP at the time.
okay. But now you're going in and disturbing it,
And the LEP is going to make another plan how to act, how to do that with state guidance.
If I may, and you know, one thing to note, or maybe help allay some of the worries, is that the ELUR area is slightly downslope from the wetlands.
It is.
So.
But the-
It would be an effort to push into the wetlands.
the part that worries me though is your. Retention basin is on top of it and part of it. So I guess my question is, why wouldn't you go for that application first? That you could do the work from them and then come to us versus worrying about what the state's gonna say about that plan.
State won't say anything. That's not how the process
That kind of
works.
what concerns me.
No, I'll bring up another example from a different town. And this pollution from old dry
Right.
cleaner was in the wetlands.
Okay,
And the LEP, not through our process here.
right,
Through the DEP's process, came up with a plan on how to remove it all, which included working with bedrock, I forget, I'm not even gonna get in. It was outside of all of us. The only thing I did was flag the wetland so everybody knew where the wetland boundary was. They didn't, and they were gonna dig down 8 feet. And then we're gonna, and my job was to come back with a plan how to build the wetland back again after the pollution was removed.
I just have a lot of questions over that area.
If the LEP put together a plan that impacted your jurisdiction, that
Yeah.
is proposed activities within the upland review area, we would come back. We'd have to come back. But we don't think that's what is gonna happen. And so that area, the ELUR area, is well outside your jurisdiction and down slope. So there's just no impact on wetlands from it. And similarly,
I think what concerns me is it was in our authority or whatever purview.
It was in your upland review area 13, that's why we're here.
All right, but now it's not.
because that
What
work was
moved?
already
That
done.
work was done, now we're doing.
But now
something.
you're undoing that work.
No, we would only be undoing, the plan's gone.
I'll put it
Right.
up.
The
See,
area,
if the retention basin was on top of it, and let's say it was over, I'd be like, okay, it's not in our thing, but, or if it was only the parking
so if you
lot.
look at the satellite, you can see an entire field in this area
Mhm.
here.
Yep.
That was where they did some work, and Jim noted that it was overgrown at the time, and now it's like a mowed area. And so that was within your 100-foot area. But if we have to go into this, we're not touching that. So that bit of our project, if we have to dig down here, is not in your upland review area.
But
Whereas
doesn't,
this part definitely is,
Okay.
and that's why we're here.
but doesn't having the retention basin there make it under our preview?
No.
I think that's the problem I'm having, is the retention basin's right on top of it, making it,
The retention basin isn't wetlands.
no, but
Not
it's.
yet, I mean,
No, it's not wetlands, and once the contamination has been properly removed through the state standards. Then we come back and.
I'm not
build the
saying it
basin.
can't
We
be
build the
done.
basin.
I just.
I'm
have a
just
lot of
saying that
questions on
it's,
it.
it's the chicken, the egg.
Okay.
The egg is the pollution. That needs to leave first.
Yep.
And then we come in and build the basin.
So then it's no longer polluted.
It's no longer a polluted site now. We're just.
I
digging
just
into the
recall, I
base.
think when, and I'm trying to remember back 2013, I think you recall. When the plan was proposed through the state and everything on how to do it, that there would be no building on top of it.
that's because it was capped.
Right, so now we're throwing that
It'll be a
away.
It'll be a different
but-
plan, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
now
but then
it-
it was in our preview. Now it's kind of like, well, it's not in your preview anymore. It's kind of like a
Yeah.
backdoor way to get away from that.
Well, I don't know.
It's not
about
saying
that.
that's your intention. by
I
any
mean, look,
means.
let me be clear. We're here
Right,
for this big project on
Right.
this site, and we will talk about everything here.
oh, yeah.
But that part of it isn't really something you have jurisdiction over.
Okay,
So, we'll do our best to answer your questions, but
Yeah.
LEPs, they're gonna do whatever they do.
yeah.
Yeah.
The second thing, sort of on the same issue, is I just want to be clear that the metal mark butterfly is not a wetland species.
okay,
The round.
And the round leafed ragwort, which is the caterpillar uses. By large, that plant for its life cycle is back up, which means it's almost always found in upwards.
So just to be clear, we'll do our best to answer your questions on those, and we'll have a plan that will respect that habitat. And do our best to make that grow better. But again, it's not in your jurisdiction at all.
Including where is the fill material gonna go?
Well,
There's a
that's,
question.
I'm just talking about the plants,
The plants.
just talking about the plants.
Yeah, but-
Fill material is definitely within your jurisdiction.
at least something is.
Yeah. No question
That's
about
fine.
it.
I'm wondering where the fill from the site that the state is gonna take is gonna go.
Oh, that's the vendor.
That's
Offsite.
offsite.
But are they just gonna dump it in another wetland?
No.
No, it is so regulated, it's beyond belief.
I'm curious.
Yeah, they'll probably burn it. That's right.
Curious. I don't even know what pollutant you're talking about.
What's it?
They're gonna burn it.
Yeah.
That's
That's why it's heavily for a third party vendor to review.
That's why it's an expensive process.
It is.
Mostly, I'm really wondering about all the hydrology in this flat, in this, having maybe a real trouble reading the topographical map here. I don't know if one of you guys know it.
Sure.
Like, are these lines to the east on the bottom of the page, are those moving up toward grassy plain? Is that
So
gaining altitude and you're?
right in, actually right through the limits of the regulated area. To the bottom of the map, or to the east, all flows downhill to Grassy Plain Street, which is here. From the purple line toward the wetland, flows inward towards the wetland. And then this wetland, if it ever becomes inundated and gets to the point where it can no longer hold water, flows down in this direction towards Grassy Plain.
So that's all moving downhill, those lines
So,
are
yeah,
are
so
descending as we go through
everything-
the street.
Everything rides down through this way.
Okay,
and
for some reason I
down-
thought that those were, okay.
Can you enlarge that to the bottom left-hand corner?
Yeah, I'm trying to picture where water is going.
Enlarge it a little more? Okay, so you see the contour lines where it's like 420, 410, so you know that's going down
I
there.
couldn't read them.
Yeah, no, that's why I
Yeah,
asked it.
So I go, yeah, this is the ridge,
Got it, thanks.
water flows this way and flows down that way.
The west side of the west side of that wetland, it goes back up again.
So, right, we need a sidewalk, obviously, just to get the lay of the land, I think, better.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so before we schedule a site walk, let me see if the public has any. So is anyone in the audience today that wishes to speak in favor or against or have questions on this application?
I'll make a comment.
Please.
Mark,
Yeah.
yes, Bethel Power, I'm across the street from the approved addition. My only comment would be, I'd like to see a couple of trees planted, not a screen, just a couple of nice trees. I know it's a minor comment, you just started.
Nope.
When we put in our building, we put pin oaks and we had to draw a landscape plan.
Yep.
So I just thought it'd be nice if you drive down Francis Clark to have some nice trees.
That might be a planning and zoning.
Okay, fair enough, I
But I
forgot.
do.
Yeah, no, just to say, we
it's a
have a
good
full
question.
landscape plan proposed for that.
Your last name, sir,
Gus, G-U-S-S,
and the address for Bethel Power?
6 Francis J. Clark, sir.
Thank you.
David, can you put the landscape plan up? please?
Yes.
You're talking about nice mature shade trees, future mature shade trees. Yeah.
And you should ask the property owners, by the way, to plant some of the redwood. I didn't know we had a butterfly. I'll plant some on mine. I'll get Carl Lizzie to plant it as you both.
That'll be in discussion.
$3 for 100 seeds on eBay.
Yeah, we could all do our part.
Up to the top, David,
Oh, by the street.
by the street.
Those are trees. Those
So
circles.
the black circles that are like targets are Norway spruce. And the white circles are red maples, or vice versa. I don't know. But so. I think
Satisfies mine. I'm done.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the audience that wishes to speak in favor, against, or have questions on this application?
We'll make sure you reach out to Zoom as well, Mr. Chairman.
Is there anyone on Zoom that has questions, comments for this application? Okay. James, you have any
Yeah.
comment?
Yeah, just me real quick. So, you all, oh, sorry. You all should be getting my full comment letter shortly, hopefully tomorrow or Wednesday. But a lot of it has to do with planning and zoning. So far, what I have in terms of wetlands that I do think would be very beneficial for the commission as well as myself. David already mentioned this. Due to the extensive cuts, how are you planning on cutting? Hammer, blasting? Are you anticipating rock? Do you have an idea of roughly how much? One of the other ones, I'm so happy that you brought up the that you are remediating that land use area. I've been banging my head against the wall saying, how did Dynas miss this? So very happy to hear that. But my question would be, can test pits I'd like to see test pits in that area. For instance, where's my screen? Obviously, I don't want you to dig inside this area at the moment. Even if you can give me something along the sides, I'm sure we're going to get more information at a future date about what type of material is going to go back in here from the LEPs. But being said, I'd like to know what the material is underneath. And same thing, not that this one has to do with wetlands, but for the other building as well, the infiltration units, just some test pits for those. And then for the commission, getting an approximate amount of trees that you're planning on removing within the upland review area. Those are like my major ones for wetlands at the moment.
Thank you.
Yep.
Question, the south side of the building front, how high is the wall? The cutout, I should say. You know what I'm trying to say? The landscaping. I'm sorry, the other side.
The grading, I
South
believe he
side.
means, Mr.
South side, so I mean,
So go to the south side of the building.
yeah, right. at
Okay,
here.
so that's flat. To your left, how high does it go up? If you look that direction,
To my left,
how
so-
high is that wall I'm looking at?
So this. Well, there's no retaining wall proposed here,
Oh, okay,
so I mean, we're proposing to grade it out, so there's a flat area for the driveway as well as around the periphery. Of
and
that
then sloping
driveway.
up.
So yeah, it slopes back up.
Was that
But, yeah,
grass around it?
primarily we're at about elevation 420 in this area. And
What's
this is
that?
the 430 contour that comes here, and the 430 contour is here. So we're about, 10 to 12
About 10
foot
feet.
cut
Okay,
in that area.
so you have a little bit of, all right, is there on the plan, and I apologize, I haven't looked through it. Showing the parking lot, how all the drainage is working through the parking lot?
Yeah,
Into
yeah,
the-
it's on our
Okay.
grading utility plan.
All right.
If you'd like for the next meeting, I can put arrows and colors and so on.
Well,
Help you
if you have
understand
it
it a little
connected, I
better.
can follow it. I mean, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I'd like to see if there's any type of,
There are vortex units.
thank you, I didn't want to say the word.
I'll just say that for the next meeting.
James Coffin hydrodynamics.
Stealing my thunder.
Could be a couple things, so long as.
Correct, yeah.
I'm good.
They are proposing two of them. And they're called the 4-foot downstream defenders, but they work the same thing as like the standard vortex units.
All right, we can get into them a little bit next meeting then, thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
I have no other questions at this time. Does any of the other commission members have any? Okay,
So what I would advise you, yes,
Yep.
correct. What do you guys want to have staked or flagged or identified, if anything, when you go out there?
The wetlands are flagged.
Okay,
Hopefully they're still.
closest point to the wetlands disturbance.
Okay.
The butterflies.
I can see
We should say that. Just-
I'm not wearing the costume again.
What, the butterfly costume? Oh. What made you do that?
Nico's gonna borrow it.
Could we make you do that?
I don't want to flag, but I'm assuming whoever will be out there will know the ELUR area.
Now you'll know it, you'll see it.
Okay, I don't want to drive anything into it. So
No.
just as long as you can say this is the area.
It looks like a place where you have your picnic.
Okay,
But don't, yeah.
and
Actually,
then
you could today.
again, if someone's out there could tell us where the detention basin outlet is.
well, that's right on the edge of that ELUR, so.
Oh, I know, that's why I wanted.
Is it appropriate to ask, I'm wondering where the outlet flows to, where the water, what water body or water
That's,
system.
that's why I want to see where the outlet is.
Water drains to, yeah,
Yes,
because I imagine it's not this wetland. That's correct.
No,
No, it all ultimately makes its way out to Grassy Plain Street and through the swamp across the street.
It's a question that I ask in my comments and I'm hopeful to hear a response.
Okay, awesome.
because my concern is concentrated to that one point, it looks like, versus sheet flow right now.
Pat, sorry, Kevin Seaman, Commissioner. I would also like to see, if possible, the, a couple points of which where the tarmac, that line of tarmac that's within the wetlands and how it's gonna flow through the wetland, the upland review area. So that way I could just, because I know it's gonna be wooded when we walk through that. I would like to just see where the edge of the pavement will be for that piece that runs through the wetland.
So I have my screen up at the moment, Kevin, so if you
Yeah,
will.
I'm seeing it.
That southernmost edge of pavement is roughly this right here.
Correct. And I would like to just have a few markings on that southernmost edge of pavement as reference points.
12.
Because it's a big piece of property. It's going to be easy to get lost when it comes to comparative. Well, when you're comparing it to like the site plan you're looking at here on paper makes a lot of sense, but I know that piece of property, not very well, but it'll be easy to get lost in there and not realize where the relative point is. So yeah, a couple markings on that southernmost piece of pavement would be very, very helpful.
Anything else in these markings? Okay,
All right, so we're gonna stake out the wetlands closest point. Or our work that's being proposed closest to the wetlands, that's southerly driveway. So we get a line. As it gives us a reference to the wetlands. The wetland flag should be there, but we'll ask the surveyor to confirm. When they're out, where they're, we'll mark out that ELUR area as well, maybe use different colored ribbon. And also the detention basin outlet.
Yep.
And did you want the area of the detention basin as well? I don't. No.
no, if I have those two, I'll be able to tell where it's kind of sitting, like if I'm standing there, I can see it. And again, you don't have to mark out, if you could see where it is, that's fine. I don't want to start driving. I'm assuming there's a rubber mat under it or something, so.
What? It's a comment worth asking. I don't,
What's that?
I would say it's a unique.
I was just wondering about possible thermal pollution from the site. I'm noticing like a huge building. I know the building itself is outside of our upland review area. That was most of the parking area.
Impacts to what?
Thermal pollution with potential impacts to the wetland. If it's like
We're
a
not
hot-
blowing to the wet.
What?
We're not blowing to the wet.
I'm thinking of like the heat just created by this site, like such an open site,
No,
like, with tarmac and what's the roofing material made of?
no,
Metal?
not gonna happen. Like,
What?
you're, no,
I mean,
you're not gonna have an impact of wetland because the building has a black roof.
you would need a
I'm
lot
just
more heat
wondering, I don't know, I've
generated.
never-
from it.
Or it might have a white roof
Whatever, it's not gonna
to
happen.
be
The
reflected.
study, we can't do
There's no
have any kind
study.
of study on it.
Wetlands forested, it's gonna stay forested. We're not draining to the wetland. It doesn't care what color the roof is. It's not gonna care.
Yeah, I don't know.
You got a lot of buildings on that road already.
I don't think there'll be enough heat generated from the building that if you stand 10 feet from it, that you would feel. the
You
building.
won't feel it.
It's not gonna
It's-
like
it's-
blow.
No.
Unless it's Google
No.
server farm or something. Yeah.
Probably.
I always just wonder, I know when I walk around in like an area that's very urbanized, like a parking lot or the mall or, anything with huge metal and black top surfaces. I mean, you're basically like cooking in it.
Have you ever left the parking lot and walked into the woods?
Always, man.
15 degrees cool.
Are you guys gonna keep any trees there on
Sure.
the side
And
that's
we're gonna
being
plant new stuff.
constructed, you think?
And there's all landscaping.
You're-
Landscaping.
The construction material of the building, it's not the reflective glass, right?
No.
Yeah. That's the only thing I could see reflecting heat. That's the only thing. So,
Yeah, green roof. I mean, are you doing green roofs? these
No,
days?
I mean, look, the
well,
thermal impact of blacktop and roofs
would be on the air, and that's not gonna affect these wetlands in particular at all.
I guess
There-
it depends on like the weather, the flow of where the air would go, right?
Well, you just gotta remember, Nico, when you walk off a Parkland into the woods, because I do it every day. It's gonna be 10 degrees cooler. Just stepping out of the sunlight into the woods, it drops. It does.
You're not worried about like,
Yeah.
I think it's a good question that we can look
I never
into
thought
more
about it really
in
before.
general,
I just see how
but I
big-
can't see
yeah,
how like the parking lot.
plus most of it's like outside of our. view.
Right, I mean, literally, if it was like, I mean, I know there's one spot that is closed, but. Maybe like the first 6 inches may affect it if the parking lot gets hot, but I can't see it radiating enough to.
Where you find impacts is like thermal impacts through water.
Yeah.
Hot water running directly into a wetland may have an adverse impact. We're not doing that.
What time's good for a site walk?
I'm at the commission's disposal. I would say, there is 1 week where, it would be in, actually. I'm gonna pull up the calendar.
That's a different animal.
Laura, do you have a better day than not?
Depending, some weeks I work till 5, other weeks I work till 6, so, and every other Saturday I work, and every other Wednesday I work. So.
I have that.
it depends.
How are you next week?
Next week I'm off Wednesday.
Oh, next Wednesday. I'm sorry, you're off,
Yeah.
then I don't want to tie up your.
Make it work whatever day.
Do you have a day that you work till 5? I don't want to tie off your day off because is next week a 5 o'clock week or a 7 o'clock or?
6 o'clock each
Oh.
next week, so,
Well, we could do
but
6 o'clock.
Wednesday.
Okay.
And sometimes I don't get out right at, be like 6:30, so,
Okay.
but what, Wednesday I'm a day off, if you guys are out of work. By a certain time, I can meet you guys, because I don't really,
Okay,
My only concern is we can't get this steak.
but
in
by
2
Wednesday,
days.
yeah.
No,
I
it's
guess we got no
Monday, but
problem.
the next
Yeah,
Wednesday,
The next Wednesday,
yeah,
okay,
which is,
what's 2 weeks Wednesday?
It's that May.
Did that work? Third?
No, so this coming Wednesday is the 26th. Next Wednesday is May 3rd. The following Wednesday is May 10th.
Is the one that works better for you?
Tenth is better.
That is,
If I could just knock in, just so you guys know, next week, I'm in finance and accounting. Next week is closed week for me, so any night during the week probably won't work because it's very chaotic time-wise for me. So if we do the week after, that'd be great. Or,
how does the 10th work for you, Kevin?
yeah, so the week after, the week of the 10th would be better.
Laura?
I'm just gonna use my cell phone just to look
Okay.
at my calendar because I'm not able to pull it up on my computer this time. I think for everyone else that's whipping out their cell phone up here. They're doing the exact same thing.
I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Wednesday, May 10th. That's my
Wednesday, I
schedule.
wouldn't be able to make it until,
We'd have to.
After
borrow
the sixth.
It's 4
Okay.
I
wheelers to
could
get me
do
there.
it this Saturday, the 13th.
I can't.
All right, how about Saturday the 13th, Kevin?
Checking now, but I think. Yeah, at this time, I'm absolutely fine with that.
And then when things change, 13th works.
That's,
You guys.
Yeah, do Wednesdays.
I could do May 13th, anytime before 3 o'clock.
Okay. So how's? 9:30? Too late for you guys?
It's at the commission's on, whenever you guys. Want me there, I'll be there.
Anytime you want.
Laura, what time works?
That's good.
9:30, huh? Kevin, 9:30 work for you?
I can do that.
All right, so I make a motion that we have a site walk. At sorry, I can't see, 185 Grassy Plain Street, May 13th at 9:30. AM.
I'm sorry, and I could second that from digital world.
Awesome, Kevin seconds it. All those in favor, Kevin, favor, against, abstain?
Favor, sorry, I thought it was on mute.
No problem. Laura?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Pat, aye.
I don't get a vote.
Not every time.
Okay, sorry.
Skin.
Okay. All right, motion carries.
Okay,
All right,
The next meeting is the 15th.
and that you would need a motion for as well, Mr. Chairman, and the reason for that, your fourth Monday of the month, when you would normally hold your next meeting is May 22nd. I will be out of state.
all right.
Kevin,
Can you make May 15th for the next meeting versus the 23rd,
22nd.
22nd?
Yep, that's fine by me.
Laura,
Yeah,
Greg?
Sure.
Fine.
So what I would recommend, Mr. Chairman, is that a motion be made to reschedule the regular meeting in May from May 22nd to May 15th.
So I make a motion that we reschedule the regular scheduled meeting from May 22nd to May 15th.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, same location.
A second?
Okay, all those in favor, Kevin?
Aye.
Laura, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried, all in favor.
Okay,
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I could have 1 minute to speak to Dennis before the next application.
Yep, no, absolutely.
so this public hearing will be continued on May 15th,
This public hearing be continued until May 15th,
7 o'clock
7 o'clock
here in this room.
here in this room. It doesn't get continued to the sidewalk. Is it that part of it?
No, the sidewalk,
Is the public invited? Or is
They
that
are.
just a legal?
they are, but the sidewalk is just for observation purposes. So that's why it's regular meetings and sidewalks are two different things.
Okay,
Do you want to take a 5-minute recess so the applicants?
certainly. I make a motion, we take a 5-minute recess. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Second.
Aye.
Of course.
Nico. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Say anything? All motion carried. Thank you. Oh, we were all. I make a motion that we reconvene the Wetland meeting for April 24th.
You don't need a motion to reconvene, Mr. Chairman. Just hit the.
I just can't win.
you new here?
Pretty
I'll
much.
second it anyways, Pat.
Thank you so much. I feel so. All right, so up in front of us now is 8, 9, 10, and 17 Millbrook Road. Corner of Benedict, I believe.
That's correct. Good evening. Peter Olson again for the applicant, Steiner Inc., which will eventually be the owner of all the property involved in this. This is our continued public hearing. In the time period since the last public hearing, we've provided responses to the town engineer's comments and to your staff comments, along with some memos and revised plans that we think addresses all of those comments. I did want to note that one of the comments that we argued about with you for quite a bit of time at the last meeting about halting construction, we've added a note to the plans that indicates that we won't undertake any major earth excavation activity during April and May within 100 feet from the Millbrook wetlands. Those are the B series wetlands. There's a plan up, I would show you. But essentially, within 100 feet of these wetlands that are remaining undisturbed on Millbrook Road. We're not talking about this tiny pocket or the sewer pipe active wetlands. So we've added that note to the plan. We hope that addresses
Within how many feet of that?
100 feet within the upland review area as well.
So is that one building, basically?
Yeah, the only building that ends up
That corner.
within it is this one here.
Okay.
But essentially what we're talking about is earth moving activity,
Mhm.
right? And that's what we're concerned about. In addition, we'll install a double row of silt fencing and monitor it on a daily basis to make sure nothing's getting caught in that. So hopefully that responds to the concern of protection for various critters from staff and commission. Okay, so we want to spend a lot of time tonight talking about fire retention basins, because there was a lot of discussion about that at the last meeting. And we put together some materials that we think are helpful on this point. So let me start with Doug DeVesta he has a nice diagram that he says.
Okay, good evening, Doug DeVesta, professional engineer, represent the applicant. We're actually on the board up here is the overall site plan that's been revised relative to comment from James and from David. So we got those on the plans that were submitted, so I'm not gonna go through all those comments we did last week. The main thing we did on the fire retention area is that we've added 3 more rates at elevation 521, which is the overflow for the fire retention system going in down into the detention, the hollow structure detention system. That's because by doing that, we're allowing to keep the water flow low enough so it doesn't have over top of the fire retention area. That was one of the questions that James had. And James and I went over it this afternoon, and he seems to be fine with all his comments and with the bio retention area. So going into a little further details, what we did.
David, can you call up the diagram that we put up?
SC 13, this one.
It might not be in the package, it was a separate document.
Separate document.
Oh, okay.
This is new, right? Because I was, or no, I was having trouble finding. one.
cross section.
Oh, cool.
Right, we asked for cross section, that's what we're prepared here.
Thank you.
It's a typical cross section through
Hold on,
the,
Doug.
through the,
We want to get it up on the screen.
okay.
Bear with me here, guys.
Email, what, Friday, we email this over?
Yeah. It's in the folder, David.
Yeah,
My folder, I know.
right. Yep, okay, got it. How's that?
Good. So slide it down so you can see the section. On top of the sheet there. There we go. Okay. So one on the screen there is not colored. One I have here is colored, make it a little easier for you to understand, to read it. So again, this is a typical cross section of a bioretention area. So what we're proposing is a bioretention area with a detention system. A bioretention area is a primary treatment for the stormwater. That's allowing your infiltration to come into the system. So what's going to happen is that this is down below is a detailed section of the area built between buildings 8 and 9, around the roadway, and between buildings 14 and 13 and 14 here. So what that is, that's where the two swales are, stone swales. That's going to bring water in from the road and surrounding areas into our bioretention area. So again, you got your little swale coming in, water coming off the road, cheap flowing off, it going down through one swale, and cheap flowing off the road and going to another swale and into the bioretention area. What you're seeing in green is the actual bioretention area, which again, look at the upper sheet there, you'll see it's a very slight depressed area. So what's going to happen is that's your primary treatment, and your secondary treatment will be your catch basin or structural. And that will be down at the outfall of the detention system, which we'll go into that in more detail. A definition per DEP 2004 Stormwater Quality Manual is a shallow landscape press designed to manage and treat stormwater. So again, it's a shallow pressed area. And it has various sand functions, or we're putting a soil mixture, which is a mixture of sand and organic materials to allow the infiltration down into the system, to remove the soil bed, to remove the roots are in the soils, and then get down into our detention system. Then following treatment again is we have a under drain under the system, which consists of a 4-inch pipe, perforated pipe with 1 foot of stone around it, and that will allow the water to collect in there. And you'll see the fingers coming off of about the center, about every 4 feet or 8 feet. There's a finger of a 4-inch perforated pipe that's connected into either a collection pipe or into the actual you might call them catch basins or yard drains within the basin itself. As you can see here, it protrudes up through the soil mixture and above the soil. So when you get a 1st inch of runoff that comes in from the road, from the house, surrounding houses, previous areas, it collects within the bioretention area. then it infiltrates down. And then it collects into the into the under drain. That will then drain into the hollow structures, or we're calling it a retainer system, which is another house structure. And then all the storms from 2, 10, 25-year storms will infiltrate down in through the soils and into the hollow structures. Only the 100-year storm will overflow into the yard drains. So again, we've got it laid out, designed, so the first inch of runoff, which is what the water quality manual requires from DEP to treat that water, but it's also back to the detention basin up to the 25-year storm, even the 50-year storm and the 100-year storm, it will overflow through the yard drains and down to the hollow structures. So once the water gets into the hollow structures, it starts to build up, and at the other end, which is right here, we've got a control outlet. Control outlet will consist of a vertical 15-inch pipe per solid pipe PVC, and there's going to be the various stages, various elevations, orifices. These are rectangle orifices that are going to control the flows. So as the water intensifies, so the lower storms are going to come out and flow out at a certain rate, and metering out at a certain rate. And as the storm intensifies and more water gets into the system, it builds up, and then more water will go out, and then as an overflow on the top as emergency overflow. Then once it reaches into that to the control outlet, then it will go through another manhole, then travel down a 15-inch PVC pipe to a secondary treatment system. The secondary treatment system will be a catch basin with a deep sump, a 3-foot sump in that, and then with a hood. And that hood will collect any floatables that are possibly get into that system. And the deep sump will collect any sediment that does not get trapped within the system itself, or does get through the system and down through the hollow structures. So that is just secondary treatment. Then once it reaches that, once it overflows that, goes into what's called a performed scour hole, and that will take and reduce any velocities down and any potential sediment, and then it will flow out through a riprap swale and out through the property itself. So again, it looks as a bioretention is a primary treatment system, going into a detention system, being controlled outlet, and then going down to a secondary treatment system, and then on out to the site itself. There was discussion last week about hydrocarbons, what happens to the hydrocarbons. They are a natural compound. Again, oils we pull out of the ground, so it's a natural compound. And then what we call petroleum hydrocarbons. And then the soil mixtures in here, it gets activated, the oxygen within the air and to the plant itself and the roots and structures, brings out encourages the soil microbials to start become active and to treat and to break down the hydrocarbons within the soils or within the water that comes into the system itself. So again, to promote any additional microbial action within this area, what I've read about is that you can do, till the soils, disturb the soil, make it more active, get the more soils activated towards the oxygen that will get the microbials moving and activated to reduce the hydrocarbon down to, so they're not dangerous or anything of that nature. And in terms of treatment, in terms of maintenance, we've got the swale here, which is stone. So that's going to collect any sediments. That's like kind of a primary treatment area. And if they accumulate sediment gets caught in this area here, that will be cleaned out either by hand or may possibly blown out and picked up later on. Then the bioretention area, we're looking at only cutting the bottom once a year. That'll be done in the late fall after the seeds from the plants are in there that drop the seeds. So next year we get the reproduction of that additional seeds. The embankment areas will get probably trimmed once or twice a year. Just to keep any invasives and woody materials from growing too much on the embankment areas. And then the surface bioretention or detention area here, you've got manholes at the end here. Then accumulate a sediment in there. We can get in there and clean them out either through hand or vacuum or whatever. So again, we've got access to get into the structures. These are 4-foot high structures, so we can get in there if we have to the person or get some kind of machinery in there if we had to. And then they preform scour hole here. Really, that's made of riprap. If there's any riprap that is missing, any kind of sediment may have gotten in there or vegetation or debris, that can be cleaned out fairly easily. And then the sump and the hoods areas that can be cleaned out fairly easily. Again, the 3-foot sump and the amount of sediment, you think, get very little sediment going down this pipe here, that you'll get very little sediment going in there that get cleaned out. Check it annually, but I don't think you get cleaned out very often. So that's really the bioretention area, how it works.
I'm just gonna do this for you. That's awesome.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for the extra work explaining
You're
that.
welcome.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, real quick too, just to add on. So I think this will be good for the commission to see as well. This is directly from the stormwater quality manual. And I could send this to you, but this is table 8-1. Basically, it goes through the different types of stormwater treatment methods and what they treat. So for instance, in this application, it's essentially a filtration practice and it's bioretention. It's effective for sediment, total phosphorus, total nitrogen, metal, and hydrocarbons. And it's somewhat effective for bacteria. So for instance, in future applications, we can also reference this table in terms of the types of treatments and what they are effective at treating. So I hope that helps too.
Thanks, James.
I'm sorry, what was this one called?
It is the bioretention.
Definitely share that. I found that useful.
Yeah, so it's under filtration practices,
That's what I was wondering.
and then bioretention is right here.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, unfortunately, the colored circles aren't always the best representation, but yeah, you get the idea.
Great.
Next,
Thank
we'd
you.
like to have Abigail Adams talk about the plantings, especially in the bioretention basin and maintenance thereof.
Thank you. Good evening. For the record, my name is Abigail Adams, registered landscape architect for E2 Land Consulting out of Fairfield. I did want to. That one's fine.
Oh, okay. Get my bearings if you don't mind.
I think it's, they did, I think it was the first email, it's the presentation package, I think it was in your wetland submission.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, thank you.
How about this one? That looks right.
That's James.
That looks right.
Sure. Oh, I'm sorry.
See, you can't, don't even tell me you're eating a cookie right
It's in
now.
the basement, but I'm you have to show my screen. My apologies.
That looks perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. I did want to focus specifically on the basin. We're proposing to plant buffer plantings around the majority of the perimeter, the top of the slope of the basin. And these are going to be materials such as inkberry, dogwoods, plethora, winterberry, and serviceberry native material we have in there. For the basin proper itself, we're proposing to overseed it with the Ernst seed mix, the rain garden mix specifically. This has a significant amount of plant material within the seed mix, but included are sedges, milkweeds, aster, bergamot, rush, sunflower, etc. So we really want, the goal here is to overseed so we can allow it for a year to fully germinate before we start the annual mowing in the late fall so that it can get a really deep root system. That's what we recommend for happening for the maintenance of that. To add on to what Mr. DeVesta noted in his presentation, I wanted to read a just really quick quote from Paul Schwab, who's a professor of agronomy. And that is the science of soil management and crop production. So he's a professor in that. Soil microbes are actually the ones that break down the petroleum contaminants, but the plants accelerate the microbes' action in the soil. They stimulate the microbes to degrade degrade the contaminants by getting more oxygen into the soil and by supplying nutrients through their roots. So I know he noted that in his presentation, but I think that's really important that everyone understands the reason why we're proposing to do some overseeding in here and why we think that this is the appropriate mix for this particular basin. He also notes that petroleum isn't very mobile, it adheres tightly to the components of the soil, and phytoremediation works well with compounds like that because the contaminants stay in the top 6 feet of the soil and are in direct contact with the plant. So just reiterating what he had stated and just to make that point. Other than that, I believe that the whole overall landscaping plan was presented at the last meeting, so I don't think I need to be redundant or reiterate anything.
Abigail, can you talk a little bit more about the mowing schedule and why that's important?
Yes, so the mowing schedule is important specifically to allow the deep roots to infiltrate into the ground and just become deeper. If we mow constantly, then we're gonna have less of a root system. They're not gonna try, as the plants grow up nice and big and tall, their roots are gonna go down deeper, and then we're gonna get just deeper into the soil. That's really the main reason for just mowing it annually. And we wouldn't have the natural benefits to wildlife and habitat if we were mowing twice a week or whatever with the regular lawn maintenance. So that's why we want
When do you mow?
late fall.
Next question.
Yes, we have nothing else to talk about tonight.
There's
So
nothing else to
I know we focused exclusively on the bioretention basin, but we thought that's where the questions were coming from. Happy to answer any questions you have on any aspect of the
Did
study.
anybody else want to ask a question first before I ask anything?
No.
Well, go for it.
Okay. Wait, thanks. This is really sweet. It's not an action.
Thank you.
Coming from him, that's huge.
All right.
I read your, like, yeah, no, I read through the landscape plan and the list of plants and stuff, and it was a really, I thought, from, what am I? A naturalist, gardener,
Excellent.
professional,
Good.
tree person.
So the fact that there was a typo and I called him.
The Nissa Sylvatica, I was gonna ask you about that.
Is that your
Oh, you
question?
That was one of them.
Okay. That was a complete
I had to
typo.
see
That was a
that.
complete typo. so
Did
we're
you,
gonna get
you're
that.
going with the Latin, one, right?
Yeah,
That would be my choice as well.
absolutely. Would not be the ginkgo.
This is sweet, black gum,
Yes.
that's sweet, yeah,
Native.
very
Native.
cool tree.
Exactly.
Anyway, thanks for providing the detailed, cross sections as well, that was clutch. Also not a
It
question.
took us a while for us to get there.
Question.
No, I think that was huge, not just for this application, but for the committee.
Yes.
You know, understanding exactly how it works,
Right.
so you can understand the filtration, it's not just dropping in, so.
When you say phytoremediation, are you talking about plants doing, like the plants acting in concert like you just described with the
Exactly.
bacteria?
Yeah, yep.
And that's a general term for any
Yeah.
pollution remediation that
Remediation.
comes from plants, right? Okay,
Correct.
from the sun.
On the back.
Is that what we
The whole-
mean?
the whole process.
But is that what we were talking about? Remember we were talking about like last meeting, maybe the sun breaking down?
That's part of the process.
That's
The sun does break down hydrocarbons, that's part of it, but the main activity is going to be in the biological, in the soil chemistry, is going to do most of the heavy lifting.
And
But the sun does do some.
Yeah, I'm just asking this, I guess, from my understanding. First, so the phytoremediation specifically refers to plants, though, not the sun, also UV breaking down or whatever.
Well,
Or-
it's a
Or
whole,
the-
it's a very
this-
complex system.
Is that what you were talking
We've-
about too?
Yeah, I was talking about the whole system, meaning the sun helps break down, we stick with hydrocarbons. The microbes in the soil are gonna help to break down the hydrocarbon into usable, really energy for the bacteria, because they need carbon to live. And then the plants will take, you gotta remember, I don't wanna get soil 101, but the soils are negatively charged particles. And things that have positively charged stick to the soil. So that's why when I said, when you have phosphorus dumping in from whatever, it's into the system, it's going to adhere to the soil because that's what it does. without getting any more complicated than that.
I mean, I'm interested in the chemistry. I think it's really important when it comes down to any of this.
Outstanding
So
information.
it's not
on
wasted
why.
on you. We can talk
Just
about
to
it.
identify for the record, that's Jim McManus.
I'm sorry, yeah.
And
Jane
you-
and Wes,
Soil scientist for the project.
offices in Newton.
There we go.
Doug, is there any concern with the channels between the building when it snows? That doesn't have to be maintained. That does, if heavy snow will like melt. Like the water flow.
I mean,
There's no
if
maintenance
it's
there.
warm enough to rain, the water's gonna flow through it.
I'm thinking snow, like if the snow starts to melt, it'll cause its own channel like
Correct.
it would.
Correct.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, about the channels too, I know, I read through the maintenance schedule of the property with I guess I forget which page it was on. 4 pages. And it was pretty detailed and a lot, right? Or relative, I don't know. It was
Yeah.
like extremely like well, thought out. And with the maintenance of the bioretention facility. Basin. With that, I forget if it was like monthly. There were a couple things that said monthly, right? To clean or.
Every couple of months, some of them, you have to just check it out and make sure. I think one of like every 3 months, you want to just make sure there's stuff's not accumulating and or weeds are growing through and stuff like that. That's all. I don't know which one, but you're right. There was something.
How do you do that? How do you maintain a schedule like that for a property? Maybe.
Well, they're gonna have it's a homeowner association, so they're gonna have a regular maintenance, person to be in there doing it.
They hire someone.
So they'll have to have a association, will have to hire someone or have someone in the organization, be in charge of that.
Who reads your checklist like you provide?
That'd be part of their. association.
And that's nice. Have you guys had good success with that in
Yeah, let me have Greg Steiner, representative of the applicant.
We plan on building these and maintaining this. We have our own landscaping firm with our ourselves. We really plan on maintaining this for at least many years.
Oh, and you guys have people who
We are ourselves, we have people who work for us.
Awesome.
Yeah, Chris
Except that
Steiner.
it's done.
Chris Steiner for the record. We're kind of want to keep this as the same quality as what we keep the park. We want it to look nice. We want it to be a high end. We do all the maintenance ourselves, and I think what you're referring to on the maintenance plan is that the monthly maintenance was for the first year. To make sure that everything establishes and no sediments are going into the system during the first year. And if any sediments does, you're looking at it, kind of whenever they're going out, cleaning it, they would clean that out too and reseed it. So really until it starts getting established, but we would be handling this and getting it going for at least the first year, and we're open throughout. That really depends on the homeowner association, but kind of with that, we would kind of work with them and everyone to establish the maintenance plan.
To see how everything's working.
Correct, and these, we really want this to be a very nice, that's why we have nice plants, we're really trying to make this a really high quality project for the town, for the neighborhood, for everything. So we're really trying to do a very nice job on maintenance on everything.
Yeah, just it seems like really important for the functionality of the system to do those. And there are just lots of different things. To me, it seemed like a lot, but I'm not,
I think once the maintenance plan gets established, it's just gonna be routine.
Cool.
It's really just a routine. And that's usually how you weed out the good landscapers from the bad landscapers, is that when you look at something, they're not doing it.
So I have a question now with the intent, and honestly, I haven't been able to look at it myself. I haven't been able to get there. What I refer to as the pit on the other side. How can that be improved?
The pit. What's the pit?
With the excavation
Yes.
that's occurring for the
From the
maintenance.
side
off of the
houses.
end of
Millbrook?
The Millbrook piece?
Yeah. I know you were talking about trying to improve that so they don't get,
We were
Back
gonna
then.
dig it out so that the channel was recreated, because
Okay.
right now it comes together and there's a big pile of sand and everything that's
Okay.
causing a block, so that we were gonna just reopen
Clean the sediment.
the channel around the corners.
and that'll keep it so it's flowing natural.
Yes.
Should there be, my understanding is there's pipes in there that feed the drainage of the other houses.
Yes,
cellar drains go in there somewhere in the same.
Should there be some type of backflow preventer on that pipe so it doesn't go back, or you don't need
You
it?
usually don't want to put backflow preventers on any pipes due to clogging, or if they do stop, you have bigger issues, is really, you want to make sure you can look at it and the water's always running out, that you look at it all the time. And I think that, you know, at the most, you know, we could put some riprap under and everything.
Right.
Just so at least it would create, you know.
So you feel it's sufficient just cleaning, it's not gonna like fill back in a year,
Well,
2 years?
No, but I don't think it's ever been cleaned out.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't know when the last time was cleaned out, and I don't know when the town has done it, and we're just trying to do it as a help the neighbors out and
Okay,
that, and we would clean it out, put some.
so
riprap
who
in
owns
there.
that property? Is it the town or is it?
It's the town's drainage.
Okay,
Oh, I remember I had a question.
please.
The swales in between the houses, or whatever, whichever house is there.
Yes.
The rocks, you mentioned. Either manual removal or blowing to get the stuff out, and then weeds.
We just be full weeds.
I think you mentioned manual even in
Yeah.
the thing briefly. I
Yeah.
just wanted to confirm with you that.
Yeah, it's
that
manual or, you know,
It's
most
not
likely it would be a
not
little,
chemical
no chemical, no, just full weed for Kim.
in the Steiners. Is that?
It's all gonna be,
on that too?
it's all gonna be, sorry, Chris Steiner for the record. Between the houses, it's all gonna, there's not gonna be any topsoil there. So there won't be any chance for the weeds to grow, any weeds will get pulled. But there's all, I think Doug has in the channel 6 inches of river rock, and then it's just gonna be kind of like a heavy river rock going to the houses. And we make sure that we don't put any topsoil down. It's all gonna be nice, sand, you know, as a kind of a sandy loam
It'll probably.
that's gonna be put around there, so you really won't, there's no nutrient, there's not many nutrients.
And it'll get blown out,
Grow.
regularly, I imagine.
Oh, yeah,
I was just
yeah.
thinking in the event that like, you know, if you guys do stop maintaining the property and then the homeowners take over. I was just a little concerned about possible chemical use further.
Just to be clear, legally, there'll be a homeowners association. That will be responsible for maintenance, and they'll have a contract with somebody, which will be Steiner for a while.
Right.
It's not like at some point, the individual homeowners will be out there. Taking care of it.
Should we meet?
It'll always be a professional association.
Do you think from a point of view of the wetlands that we could somehow maybe put in like a clause that says specifically to not use any
Yes,
chemicals?
you can put that in as part of the approval process. Or just simply.
I think there's, and you know, I think
I
there's
don't know.
more.
Yeah.
There's less harmful chemicals than what there are more harmful, I think Roundup and a couple others. I think there are certain herbicides that are more wetland, or that are a lot more wetlands friendly than certain ones.
And you would recommend,
And
Jim, or?
we,
Sorry.
No, we can't.
Soil science.
There's professional.
Oh, but I was wondering about
There's
like the vinegar
professional-
say, because vinegar knows.
No,
I'm the dirt
I don't
guy.
think they're allowed to make any recommendation like
No.
that to the.
No, but vinegar acidify the wetlands.
No.
I
Vinegar,
I know it's from.
If you have that much vinegar, we have more problems than that.
Vinegar, like most other organic compounds, I would imagine would break down. Considering that it's a weak acid, it's not like it has the same bond structure that other stronger acids would. That would be a concern, like something.
I don't think vinegar would be a concern there.
Unless you're throwing oil and.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Kevin, you have any questions?
I do not, actually. You guys have covered pretty much everything. I listened and looked through the schedule of maintenance. Everything was good. I personally and like how they're being proactive in taking care of that particular area and what they're doing with the area myself. I'm pleased with what I've seen, and I don't think I have any questions that I haven't asked already.
Great.
At least at this time.
Thank you. Laura, any questions?
Nope.
Greg? I have a question.
What about then?
Danielle is allowed
Yeah,
to
yeah.
participate, yeah, you're allowed to participate in
Yeah.
public hearings, even in that seat.
And it's not a public hearing.
No, it's not a public hearing.
Thank you.
No, it's not.
I do actually have a question. I know that you want to maintain a beautiful high-end establishment here, so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how much fertilizer you'll be applying to keep those grasses nice and green. And the impacts on
the runoff
We,
and phosphates into the.
we
wetlands.
use, a lot of times in the park. We've had good success with, the organic fertilizers. I think we've been using like a plant tone and, polytones on a lot of this, so we really try to use more of the organic. I'm trying to get where exactly we are here. But most of all the wetlands plants, we really don't treat them with, a fertilizer. We always use the organic fertilizers on all the shrubs, trees, everything that we do.
It's all, not all probably, but maybe the green, the lighter green, is that all scheduled to be grass?
Abigail?
Yes. Yes.
That's
all
more what I
grass.
was asking about in terms of
The lighter
fertilizing
green?
the grass growth.
Yes. Yes, that is.
But she was asking whether there's gonna be fertilizer used periodically on the lawns.
Depends on how the lawn is growing.
Right. Is it sandy soil underneath currently?
It's a
Fine
mixture.
sandy loam. Typical soils you find in Bethel.
I know I have a whole bunch of it, and grass doesn't grow so well unless you throw an awful lot of lime and.
Oh,
fertilizer
that's-
down.
So let's ask the engineering question is, assuming fertilizer was applied to grass on the site, where would the runoff go?
Well, if the runoff that's on
It's gonna go
would
through.
flow towards the bioretention area. And I think with James, that
It filters it.
that chart that he had up there says for phosphorus, nitrogen. Is the bioretention area is very good for that. And that's really what the bioretention is doing. It's gonna collect the sediment, the nitrogen, the phosphorus and stuff like that and treat it. So that's the portion that's gonna be, and that's the area that's gonna go towards a wetland. So that's gonna take care of those areas right there.
It's not just oils and such, it's everything that comes in off of the site is going to be treated.
Well, perhaps, so my question would be, yes, I can see how the stuff that's around the houses, but there's a lot of, if that's all grass, there's a lot of it that doesn't look like that's going to be a part of your water management. It's just going to be going down. I guess maybe eventually it runs off. That's my concern, is that if it's not being directed, that it will end up in that big wetlands area behind anyway.
No, because that's everything is downhill from the Millbrook, everything goes.
I'm gonna pull up this
And
thing.
also, you're talking.
Oh, you're right.
Let's keep a clear.
The higher elevation.
Keep a clear conversation. So Greg was the one who was
Sorry,
saying,
Greg, thank you.
and then Jim was chiming in.
I was just gonna say, a
18.
lot of your
It's a good
concern is do over fertilization. The Steiners are not gonna over fertilize. There's no reason to. A lot of your runoff problems has to do with over fertilization and erosion. The reason a lot of streams and lakes have problems with phosphorus is because the phosphorus gets into the stream channel, not into the soil through erosion, through direct impact or direct. I don't know how old you are. When I was a kid, there was a big deal with a lot of phosphorus in our dishwash laundry detergents. And they usually get discharged directly to the streams.
Right,
And all the ponds were turning green.
right,
That's why a lot of detergents now don't have a lot of phosphorus in them. That was part of the problem.
right. But if I'm not mistaken, the problem currently is really more about the fertilizers that are being applied to lawns, which are not native. And I know that we all want to have green lawns, but we're trying to promote something to grow in a space where it really doesn't.
Which
And so
is-
we have to
which is
mitigate that.
nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. These
Yep.
are three natural products that are in the atmosphere and on the ground all day long. So now you're talking about overfill.
Correct.
So,
Doug, can you talk a little bit about how much of the site gets picked up by the bioretention?
I have the drainage area, post development watershed up for that very purpose. Attorneys.
So the bioretention area. So the bioretention area is gonna pick up the water from the entranceway coming in. And then the water that's coming down from the easterly end or southerly end, coming down to that swale and through here. Anything from the front portion of the driveway or the front of these houses here, from these houses, all go to the, she flow out to the road. And the area from the front of these houses, across the hammerhead, and then the back of these houses all go to the detention area. So my outline here of my red line is the area that's being drained down through into our bioretention area. So it's a majority of the sites being collected there. You're talking some areas that from here over. From this portion of the buildings over and over here is being brought down. So not that much area, but most of the area is being collected into our bioretention area.
Mr., just to shift the focus briefly, and kind of segue, Mr. DeVesta, so then if that is what you are saying, then this area up here, which is, if I'm getting that correctly, this is all gonna be manicured. And then this area here between the wetland and the bioretention system, and then these areas here, those would not go into the bioretention.
Correct.
But also, but also,
So wouldn't that filter?
but also,
into the ground?
Abigail's providing, a buffer between the wetlands and the lawn area where it's gonna collect and,
It doesn't, when
maybe
there's
kind of
too much
walk,
nutrient in the soil.
set it in there as well,
bacteria
or
can't
the,
keep
and
up
the
with that,
phosphorus.
overflow ends up, and that's
That
why
was
he's
what I was gonna ask
talking
you,
about.
is there a way to
over-fertilization
engineer a
to be
lawn
accurate,
that,
But over fertilizing.
so that you can catch any
How do you
possible
prevent that?
Right,
fertilization
how do you
from
measure what's
that?
appropriate
Like a-
and what's not?
like a
Well, it is a
bird or something,
significant
or
problem and it
something.
impacts the species in the
Sure.
wetlands too, particularly adverse. Indians, which are
No, but I mean
a
like,
huge piece
like
of
constructed
any-
firm or something. where
Okay.
Basically like if it did
Can
flow.
we-
But then we're concentrating the flow someplace then. So you just then have the sheet flow off into some kind of vegetative buffer like Abigail's providing. Versus any kind of a swale, then you concentrate the flows at that point.
Don't forget that the wetland, my A series wetland, which is where the sewer pipe is.
Yep.
That's not gonna be routinely maintained. That is gonna be a wetland area. So again, if something were to run off with additional, it's gonna hit another area that we think. So if we don't have a water course immediately offsite.
And just.
You should say your name first.
Chris
Sorry,
Steiner.
gotta get that hat.
Steiner, 82 Park Lawn Drive for the record. That this whole site is gonna be taken care of by a professional landscape company. So they're gonna have to have a license, they're regulated, they have to have a license. It's not gonna be a homeowner that's going out there and just dumping a bag in and going like this and making it look green. This is a professional, they are highly regulated by the state and everything is documented and is posted and documented. So it's not gonna be, yeah, I understand where you are. Over fertilization is not a good thing. But the last thing that people want, the commercial guys want, is fertilizer is expensive. They're not gonna put down any more than what they need. And they have their DEP license, they're regulated. So it's not gonna be a homeowner, which I see a lot, just every month they're out fertilizing. That's not gonna be the case because it's gonna be a professional organization.
We know that
Thank
to be
you for
like
the
this.
clarification and for explaining the regulations from.
Thank you. Any questions? Any other?
No,
Okay.
I'm so excited that I got to ask.
Nico, good? Dave, any questions, comments?
Just one or two, Mr. Chairman, and their housekeeping. So the bioretention system explanation, I think that was very worthwhile information for the commission. The comment about the schedule for the mowing, also very useful for the commission. To get into Abigail's report, if I may, can you give us a copy of the report that you quoted from for the record? Would you?
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
I can email that.
Okay, I would
I have my
appreciate it.
handwritten notes.
No, not a problem. If you could just email that to me, I'd appreciate
Yes,
that.
I'll get that to Mr. Attorney Olson and if you can forward that.
Thank you.
Anything else we have to submit.
Okay, and just to expound on that a bit more, if I may. It sounds like that report just talks about plants in general. It doesn't hone in on any specific species.
No, not at all. It's very short.
Okay,
It's a very, very short article.
okay.
6 paragraphs or 7 paragraphs.
Part of why I think your being here is so valuable. So there's a specific selection of plants that are going to be in that bioretention basin. Is that specific selection the best type or group of plants that can perform that function as compared to others, or is it more of just we think these will work the best in general?
I think these are going to work the best in general and for this site and these site conditions. There are specific seeds that you did quite a bit of research on this. There's things like red clover and alfalfa, which are fabulous for this, but they make absolutely zero sense here, like the red clover, it's just, it's unsightly, it's not what you want to use, it doesn't, it's just not right. Alfalfa is like a crop that you use for feeding, you know.
It's also very water intensive for what I understand.
Exactly, there's that, so there's things like that that just don't make, there's southern crabgrass, I mean, a whole bunch of things that we wouldn't want to put in there because they're not native and things like that. So we feel that the overseeding of the rain mix, which has a lot of native species, the rushes, and just getting that root mass is going to achieve, along with every other thing that's related to this, the filtration and the infiltration of this basin is going to achieve what we want to achieve.
To go on to your vein, Danielle, if I may, because I know it was a very worthwhile comment. I'm gonna pull up. Which sheet do we want here? I think this one. I'm gonna share it on the screen. Okay. So what I have up on the screen, it is the revised sheet SE3, the proposed site plan, so it's just what the conditions will be when the project is finished. And I'm gonna focus on the area which is essentially down from, what would that be, unit 16 to wherever this outlet structure is here. I'm assuming that's the outlet for the bioretention detail that Mr. DeVesta had up at the beginning of his presentation. So if I'm understanding this correctly, and I'm asking this for your benefit the most, Commission, what would be otherwise between, well, actually, no, I'm jumping ahead of myself. The edge of this manicured lawn would otherwise go right up to the limit of the wetland that is on that plan. Am I understanding that correctly?
If you go to soil erosion control plan,
Okay,
that shows the limit of disturbance,
right,
and that's what we're saying the limit of the manicured lawn will be.
okay,
I think that'll be more, I think it's SE8 maybe,
okay.
right? No,
Not
7 then,
SE8.
7 then,
Okay,
right there it is, there you
no,
go,
no, not a
there
problem.
you go. Yep.
All right, so the limit of disturbance is understood, and I'm glad that we got that clarified. Thank you very much for addressing that in my comments, but my point is, after the work is completed, after the silt fence and all the other temporary sedimentation and erosion control measures go away, i.e. are removed, you essentially have manicured lawn and then the edge of the wetland. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But you'll have a plant, you have to have a buffer, a planting buffer too.
So I see that here from halfway, I guess, along the back of the bioretention basin to unit 16. While the commission may not necessarily be looking for trees or anything else of that type, is there something that could give that manicured lawn an edge that would otherwise not be the wetland itself?
I guess that's what I was asking kind of before.
So maybe we should first have Jim talk about the nature of the wetlands in that area.
Okay.
It's a meadow, right?
Jim McManus, right now, well, if you remember back from the site, well, I think everybody lived there, most folks. It's the sewer pipe goes through it, right through it now. So right now it is a mowed meadowy looking area that is disturbed. But it has the soils, so it makes it a Connecticut regulated wetland. And that's about all. However, since we're not going to maintain it as it currently is, it's going to have grow more. We're gonna, what's the schedule, Doug, on this swale? Once or twice a year, just to keep the woodies down and the invasives out. we're gonna control that by mowing it and then let it grow as meadow every year.
So if there were runoff from manicured lawn
Right.
into that wetland.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to go through a robust.
So it's not. It's not a golf course.
It's not a golf course. This will not be a golf course. It'll be a robust wet meadow, if you will,
The wetland itself.
the south. But this will be maintained lawn. This will be a meadow that's maintained once, maybe twice a year, depending on how it's doing.
And what will the effect of excess fertilizer runoff, if there is any, be on the plants that are in that meadow?
Well, it would help them grow better.
That's where I'm going with it.
So we're gonna have even a more robust wet meadow.
So you know, I
Oh, we
understand
hope
the
not.
concern about.
Nico. We hope that's the objective of this exercise, is to have a bunch of ragweed growing.
Can we get some of that round leaf?
No, Well, we don't have limestone soil, so no butterflies.
We don't want to move those butterflies.
No, if there's no limestone, they're not here. That's why they're
You
so,
could put in some nice wildflowers, native wildflower species. in the
No,
plants.
that's what we.
well, that's good for any.
I know.
So the point I was getting to is that obviously we're concerned about phosphorus and nitrogen and discharge into wetlands, particularly ponds and streams and, you know, red maple swamps and all that. But in this particular case, it has no impact in that area.
Right.
There's a buffer.
Most wetland wouldn't be doing anything.
It is a
and
buffer.
You're gonna be mowing it, so it's a disturbed wetland to begin
No,
with.
disturbed wetland anyways, and we're just going to disturb it less.
Right.
And remember, wetlands are sinks.
Yep.
They're liver and kidneys of the earth, they're filters. And Attorney Olson was saying if we have excess fertilizers, it's going to hit the robust buffer. And depending on where we have that problem, then it goes from the robust buffer into more planted material that we're not disturbing. And then this is forced. Again, it's not directly discharging to a perennial water course right off the site. Or we're not discharging to a perennial water. It's got to go through all this stuff before things happen.
It seems to me like it's almost like essentially that long swale is like a man-made wetland that you just.
Well, it's exactly it.
Kind of.
It just happens to meet the regulations. They can have.
Dave, any other questions, comments?
Well, I would just, and I'm not trying to badger on this comment at all. There are other.
Plant types?
No. There have been other sites where and this is mainly in the vein of ponds or water bodies that have running or standing water. So you may not feel that this is as critical here.
I think the wetlands you're talking about are one piece. Won't want anyone even stepping in, you know?
No.
This one, they're gonna be mowed.
Right, and mowing, anything to maintain vegetation, that's.
Right.
Maintenance happens all the time, especially if you're trying to address any invasives that may otherwise get established in there. Absolutely, you want to be able to have someone have the opportunity to go in there and remove those. So the mowing is not the issue, because they're gonna be doing that once a year.
Right.
They're not gonna be trying to treat it like a lawn itself. That part, I think you and I both understand.
Right.
Is it worth having the wetlands be the only area that is left as that buffer, that area that's not mowed as often? And I understand from the applicant's point of view, you're trying to maximize on the area of manicured lawn that you can provide your residents, and you obviously don't want to deny them that, if I'm speaking correctly.
David, how many planning and zoning commission meetings have you attended lately where the commission members demanded additional green space for
That's
residents
fair.
to use? So
That's fair.
so, yeah, no, we need as much as we can get.
Okay.
There's always a tug of war between this commission and that
Peter
commission,
and
but
Paul.
in this case, they're gonna win that.
Okay,
we need to provide that area for the residents.
understood.
So I understand the point, but
Just put the zoning board above us. That's
yeah,
Okay,
sometimes you win, sometimes they win.
Understood.
so I
Ken's
think,
good, so.
I think it's worth having that point be out there. And that be why that we're.
I would agree with you if it was a delineated line where they're not mowing or going into the other side, but they're gonna be going into the other side anyway.
Mhm.
So I'm not saying a concern.
And it's more food for thought
Right.
for your guys. It's my opinion on how they should handle that is indifferent. It's you guys that made the decision, so.
Right.
Yep.
As long as you are comfortable with how they are maintaining that area, that's what matters.
Well, what's the grade? You guys are grading that, right? The lawn areas?
No, oh, no. the lawn-
That's pretty much.
The lawn areas to the east. The east, what is this? To the east.
North is to the left.
Or the north.
So let's talk about that first.
Yeah, right, what's, yeah, I mean, especially, it's not gonna get much, Greg Steiner, no, it's pretty much the same grade, it's gonna be there, we're gonna put the topsoil there, backblade it and seed it, it's very little, other than putting the
It's
pipeline,
almost flat.
that we have to go through. That's pretty much staying as is.
Pretty flat. I mean, yeah, you can always like pitch it away from the wetland, I guess, or.
As I recall, there's a depression where that.
Right, go down there.
That is the back.
That yellow area is the wetland. That's the depression. That's probably
Yes.
the A is
My
wetland.
concern was more about the wetlands that is to the south.
So, and that's.
That's the Millbrook piece.
And that's.
Correct.
That's the more critical.
That's uphill.
And that's,
Yeah, that's uphill and there's a long way to go before you hit those.
That grassy swale is what could get stuff in the lawn, which is gonna be mowed once a year, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wetland today and it's gonna be fully vegetated as it already is today. It's just gonna be better vegetated area than it is today. With our help.
Thank you for addressing. the issue.
One last thing, if I may, this is a housekeeping thing, the additional presentation plans, we never got hard copies of those. So if we could have those. No, we got the revised site plans, we got SE,
What the color ones be?
no, so like
Oh.
SE-13.
You got that plan. You put it up on the screen.
Right, we got the electronic version, but we never got a hard copy.
We'll get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. For the commission, I do not have a decision ready for you guys tonight. So I would recommend that you request this site plan review be continued to our special meeting so that we could possibly render a decision then.
You need a motion for that?
No, I would just have a consensus, and then, of course, the applicant would have to consent to give you that extension.
I'll
Alright.
provide an extension letter tomorrow to May 15th.
Perfect. It's the commission members. Anyone have a concern with that? No. Okay.
And,
No, I'm good.
for the most part, and I don't want to speak for James, but I think most of his comments have been substantially addressed. I believe. Doug-
All of my
James,
comments
you good?
have been addressed to my satisfaction. All
Okay.
set.
Thank you.
And with just another cursory review of all the documents, I believe mine will be as well. So if the commission feels so strongly one way or another for me to have a decision ready for that meeting, I can most definitely do that. So whichever
So I'm
way.
trying to figure out how to word this.
Make it so.
Kevin, how are you leaning towards this application, in favor, against, or abstain? Is that right?
I'm leaning in favor of the application. Everything that James had asked of the applicant was very well substantiated, and all the questions I've asked have been addressed. So at this time, I would be in favor of asking for a draft resolution.
Thank you. Laura?
In favor.
Greg? I would be in favor as well. I think the applicant has addressed everything, plus has gone above and beyond with the cross section that Doug showed today. So thank you for that. Danielle, is he allowed to say if she'd be in favor or?
She's not gonna be able to vote on it,
Go
but she
for it.
can,
In favor, but it doesn't matter.
What's our time?
so with a site plan review, you have a default period of 65 days to review that application. That 65 days would run out before the 15th. And in fact, I believe it runs out, if you have a copy of the agenda, it says when that period it runs out. It ends May 3rd, so to get to May 15th, you would need an extra 12 days. You're allowed to have up to 55 extra days. Of which the applicant would give you 12 to get to that meeting.
Do we have a concern that would extend it out?
We're thinking about construction and the.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I'm just thinking of anything that we could be missing, maybe as much time as we can to figure it out.
Okay, I think we're already going above the normal time allotment, so.
Well, right, so.
I mean, if you're more comfortable extending it, you can discuss it, but
So
You're
you-
talking about extending it to the 15th right now.
it, yeah, the applicant said they would grant us permission to extend it to the 15th.
Right, they would be giving you 12 days of extension time
Right.
to get to that next. Meeting. 12 of your 65 days of extensions. And
No,
that's,
we don't want to.
I think I have all the information I need to make approval or denial of the application. Well,
I mean,
I love to have more information too, but it's a
I mean,
realistic
it-
time frame. that you have
this
to
is the
keep it.
time, to make it known so that the applicant can.
I don't think we could keep the application open for, there may be something else coming in down the road, not knowing what that might be. Like if you're waiting for a report or waiting for some information or want to look into something, yes, possibly, but I don't think it would be fair to any application and say, hey, I like it, but let's go as long as we possibly can in case, something happens.
If
I mean,
there
I'm
was-
comfortable with the amount of time and the information that we receive, but you may not be, but I am good.
if there was something that neither James nor I had seen be submitted for the record that we knew that you guys would need, we would let you know what that is.
Cool.
I think the cross sections that you got, the testimony that you've gotten tonight has gone a long way to address most, if not all, of the concerns you had from the previous meeting.
Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty good to me, like I said before, it's, in my, personal area of learning this stuff, it's still not clear to me all the time, what questions we should be asking, maybe, I'm still learning that.
Well, that's why you got so many committee members that can ask the questions, and then you got people from the town that oversee and help with those questions as well, and keep in mind, if there's any impacts that changes this plan, it comes back in front of us, or, it's handled by Dave, depending on how
That's
big the concern would be.
That's correct.
So there's always like some safeguard built into it.
Great. Thanks.
And you can always use, not to chime in, but you could always use James and Dave to answer those questions that we might be uncomfortable with and not have enough knowledge on. That's to my knowledge, that's why they're sitting there to help. Because I'm so new that they have to guide me through the answers that I'm pretty oblivious to, but I'm making sure that I'm taking notes on as I learn.
Yeah, nice, I just want to make sure we don't miss anything. if possible.
And just to be clear, these three, Doug, James, and Abigail, are very good at what they do.
Yep.
And I hope you learned a lot from them tonight. They're happy to answer questions.
No, I totally did, thank you, so.
Abigail and Nico can keep you talking for hours, man.
Yeah, I know, something great.
Yeah,
So Nico,
and understand what the plans are.
where are you with having?
Do I have to say that?
Well, you can, it's.
No, you can abstain, it's not even a thing, so,
I'll abstain from this.
So in general,
that we're doing.
it seems like the overall consensus from the committee is to have you draft a resolution of approval for us to review at the next meeting. And then we could discuss that in greater detail at that time.
It will be ready for your review, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Yes,
very much.
too.
Okay, new business, in the wetland meeting, special meeting minutes from 4/17, do I hear a motion for approval on those minutes or?
A motion that we approve those meetings.
Second.
Minutes.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you.
Great, we got that, okay, I think everyone's here last meeting, Kevin, in favor, against, or abstain?
For the minutes, I'm in favor of accepting the minutes.
Okay, Lauren,
I said that second.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
I, Danielle. You don't get to.
You just have to rub my nose in it.
I just don't know when you can. I have.
You never get to rub it unless you.
Plus for hearings, you're just listening.
I'm still here.
Wish I knew more about
Right.
I'm still figuring it out, but I was surprised. to hear it.
Is when you have a.
Did you make, did you make, did you make, did you make comment? No.
I don't have.
Oh,
to
good.
hear it.
17.
All right,
We're on to 17.
All right, let's stay it fast, guys. It's 9:30.
Yep, where are the brownies?
all right, so next order of business, 17 Whitney Road. Dave, I believe we had asked you to write up a potential approval.
Yes, I do have a draft resolution of approval on hand, Mr. Chairman. I will also do the Star Wars scroll as it was not in the Google Drive for this meeting. So anybody who's out there in Zoom lands, i.e. Stephen, can read along with you guys and take a look.
Sounds good.
Tonight?
What's that?
I have a legal question, but we don't have a lawyer for you.
Mr. Mizuko's not here tonight.
I'm sorry,
Mr. Mizuko.
I had seen Mr. Mizuko.
He's on Zoom.
This Saunders.
Yeah, he's here on Zoom.
Okay, cool.
So I'm going to share my screen and do the Star Wars scroll, if you will. Bear with me here, guys.
All pretty much boilerplate for page. Dave, everything pretty much boilerplate the last.
I think it's just worth for how involved this public hearing was, that you review everything, including the exhibits, because the list was extensive.
I don't. Should we not have special?
Yeah, and if there's something I missed, this is where you guys can let me know, because this is your opportunity for me to make revisions. I'm hoping I didn't miss anything.
I don't know how you keep track of it.
Mary Church. Keep track of it. Correct.
Well, if there, I'll tell you one thing, Pat, there's no control F for that.
I learned how to use it. Thank you very much.
Oh, why did you go and say that? Pat, we'll talk afterwards.
Yeah, it's all straight. Yeah. Did we have any? I thought I didn't see any stipulations in it.
Yeah. It's monitoring.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
Sample collected.
Yeah. There,
Under
okay.
miscellaneous.
What's the sample collection?
Yeah.
7, 8, 9.
There's a typo there.
Touch that.
Yeah. Who takes the samples? The water samples?
It would be typically one of their consultants.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it'll be the company who does the testing, or the applicant might, or the property owner might as well.
And they're basically, we're asking them to test for what, James, like total suspended solids or dissolved solids? I mean,
I believe that was in the.
oh,
last-
some suspended
Suspended
solids.
solids.
You want me to put that back up?
Yeah, why
Yeah,
not?
I missed it.
Okay, not a
It was
problem.
number 3, I think, yeah.
Hang on. It's coming back.
Yeah, I just don't want to misquote it.
Nope, not a problem.
Under miscellaneous.
Yep. Yeah, right there. It's the third one, I think. Yep, number 8.
Dissolved salts, suspended solids and hydrocarbons.
Annually for 2 years.
Yep.
With the base being taken between May 1st and May 30th.
We asked her if it's
Fair.
possible.
Does this reflect?
What we asked, yes.
All right.
Did we ask for a phosphate as well, or we could not ask for a phosphate? We tested and that's.
I would imagine that phosphate, if this is a compliance sample, I would imagine that would be a standard readout that would be given if.
It's not imagining this worded in there.
Okay,
That would make
So
sense.
dissolved salt, suspended solids, hydrocarbons, fertilizers, what,
Yeah. I'm not sure of all the differences, so.
whatever else in that one. You wrote, yeah, dissolved solids, suspended solids. Dissolved
Dissolved salts.
salts, sorry, thank you, suspended hydrocarbons and fertilizers, right?
well,
Can you
so
tell?
fertilizers that would, your,
Phosphorus.
it's nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus, right? So those chemicals wouldn't explicitly read out as being from fertilizer per se.
I then, okay,
So you don't wanna be specific about
okay,
what the source could be. You're looking for what they would show up on how they would show up on the test
Okay.
results. And I think the way I wrote it,
But that
Reflect
would imply overuse of fertilizers.
Okay.
it certainly could.
What?
so you feel the way you wrote it would cover it?
I would hope so. I mean, I'm looking for do you have any thoughts on how
It's the first time we had this in the
Right.
thing, so.
Well, wouldn't just a question, well, wouldn't the suspended solids be the carriers, the primary carriers of?
I think that's what
Phosphorus?
Dave's saying.
Yeah, okay, so, that's
Yes.
what I thought, that's how that worked too.
Suspended
So-
solids is more of like the of the lack of a better description, dirt. Sorry, my brain's a little fried now at this point, but just like the dirt and material that's just floating around, so it look murky. Is what you would essentially see.
That's suspended solids, yes, James?
Correct. Yeah.
It's hard to hear the beginning.
Sediment. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. Sediment.
James, would this cover
Damn,
over,
James.
would this cover over fertilization the way it's written, or do we have to add something?
I would probably include. So phosphorus is usually a good indication of
Right, so that
of the
adds
fertilizers. So even if, as David mentioned, most fertilizers have multiple other things in it. So it's not just phosphorus that goes up, but phosphorus is usually the telltale sign. It is most likely the most common
Okay,
of all fertilizers. So hopefully,
okay.
And would that be considered under the dissolved solids test, or should it be specifically outlined?
Well, it's dissolved salts.
Oh, so it doesn't.
Yeah,
Okay.
suspended solids, hydrocarbons, and I mean, I'd probably just include phosphorus in there. Yeah, I don't think you need to include all the other ones.
Where they wrote it, so
Okay.
that's fine.
Thank you, James.
Thank you. Anything else that might have been missed?
I mean, the comments or the conditions 7, 8, and 9
Or do you want-
are the specific ones you asked to be
Right.
included in this draft resolution of
Yes.
approval. Otherwise, conditions 1 through 6 are your frequent flyers, if you
Yeah.
will.
There would be one additional thing, a sample taken prior to the start of construction.
I think
For a
that's the
baseline.
May 1st to May 30th.
No,
That's
it's
the
not.
dates for collection for the regular schools.
All right,
Yeah,
Was
so
one submitted to us with the initial reports or with the initial
they normally don't.
data or information that we received?
So,
We need a basement, right?
I'm sorry, Kevin, one at a time.
Have we already received one? As a baseline? That's the question. I didn't know if we might have already been in receipt of one.
No samples have been received.
And yeah, I agree. We should definitely, we need a baseline, otherwise we have nothing to compare against.
Okay, so, but where is the baseline coming from? Because this is, the way this is written, this is coming from an outflow of the stormwater management system. You don't have a stormwater management system out there
We need a
now.
baseline.
Here's the
So
thing.
there's no water source from which to collect. Is that what you're saying?
Right, at least with the existing condition.
Well,
Right.
no, this sample has to be taken from the brook, right?
No,
because
no,
it has its own
No,
issues.
you want this sample taken from the stormwater management system, because
How about from upon completion of it upon completion of the project?
so that's how I have it written. So the samples, the gathering of these samples begins as soon as we get a letter of substantial completion, because that's the trigger for me to go out there,
Right.
issue a zoning compliance certificate, and for the applicant to be in the process of getting their CO, which is when they would be allowed to have occupants in this space. That's essentially them saying, we're done with the construction. When we get
Okay, if that's how that reads, like, as I read this, in my mind, I read it, they'll just provide it to us the first May 1st to 30th after completion. Like,
So that's why it's, that's why the once annually for a period of 2 years is in there. I know it's blurry, but it's in there.
no, that's fine. That was just me misreading it.
No,
And I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying.
I didn't want to wordsmith this condition too much, but I wanted to have everything be caught with what you guys were discussing last week, be put into as concise a condition as possible.
And it's really difficult, I'm sure, to word these and figure it out for sure. So I appreciate the effort that you put in. I'm wondering though. If the. Oh, I can't.
What? Tell me, say something. Earth and materials, Dave. Should we specify that more? What does that mean? Earth and materials under section 9. Or you mean organic?
I mean, if you want organic to be.
I just don't want it to
You know
be.
what,
I don't want. I
went
don't want.
through that a lot.
I don't want.
last
I don't want it to be
meeting.
misconstrued by a landscape.
I wouldn't, earth and materials is better. You'd be surprised what they can fall under the guise of organic.
I would say earth and material,
Earth and materials is preferential for me. Organic is a fail-safe word in so many ways these days. I don't think it's.
But does earth have any industry like meaning when it comes to fertilizer?
To me, it's like made from earth, it's biodegradable type fertilizer. Natural.
That somebody's.
You want to put natural earth and material, then,
Something.
all right, put natural.
Well, it's.
I think we're getting a little.
Right.
grain
Well,
over it.
landscapers gonna look at this and be like, earthen, like, this looks like earth to me, like. well-
No, they're, again, they have to be licensed and stuff, they'll understand. And plus, you got samples being taken, something we haven't had on any other application, that they're gonna take water samples of the water course. So if he's not using earthen material, that's gonna show up. And then you gotta go back and say, okay, now you have to adjust what you're using. So if anything, my thing always was the fertilizers, how do you enforce it? You're basically enforcing it with the water samples here. So if you want to put natural in front of it, that's fine. I don't think you need to word it any more than natural earthen material.
I agree.
Unless you're gonna sit there and start giving them the chemical composition of the fertilizer to use, which I don't think you can.
No,
Right.
you bind yourself more, the
Right.
more specific you are.
you're testing it already. So if it comes out with stuff you don't like in there, you can go back to them and say, you're not using the right stuff, or you're using too much stuff, or.
How, yeah, that was my next question. What are we testing for? Like, what, to what end?
To make sure that, again, they're using the right fertilizer. That's where this whole conversation came from in this water testing. To make sure they're using the right fertilizer. Not
Well,
too much
you're
fertilizer,
you're
and
also
the salt
testing to make sure that the stormwater management system
is working.
is functioning the way that the engineer has shown that it would be designed.
Right.
Which is what, James, if I can ask, are you there?
Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out how to answer what you're looking for.
I didn't know if I asked the question very.
There's not going to be like a baseline number that I would say every system is going to put out. I don't know of anything like that off the top of my head. I can look into that, but
Like, how do we know if what we read is too much? If we get a reading, and how do we know how to read the report and be like, oh, that's too much or illegal?
This
What
is
is
what
the
the
standard?
conversation we had last time is why we asking for it when we don't know how to even read it or uphold it.
So that's why a baseline is important. So figuring out what the baseline is prior to throwing down any salts, throwing down, before there's a significant amount of sediment thrown into the system, oils, things like that. So that's why you kind of get that baseline. And what you're really trying to watch is for, spikes. And each one of those will tell us a story about why, what's happening. You know what I mean? Because
Do you think there should be a baseline prior to construction?
Of the site.
Well, so that's the problem is it's hard to do that because, as David said, it really should be taken from the outfall. Because what we're trying to protect is that brook right there. In that water course. So we don't want to test inside that water course because you don't know of who's, it may not be this property that's contributing.
Upstream effects, right? Is that what we're going for? You don't know upstream effects?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
The neighbor upstream could be dumping stuff in and now that's contaminating those results. And we're only looking at it for this property and now we're pointing fingers at them when they're not doing it. So that's why you really want to look at the outfall, that the system. So, I mean, my thing would be do it as soon as it gets constructed, because at that point, the system's going to be clean. So you're not going to have suspended solids. You're not going to have road salt applications. You're not going to have like abundance of fertilizers down that are entering the system. Like that's the ideal time is prior to issuing that CO.
So is it written that way, Dave, where they can?
As it is now, it is not.
All right, can we add that so they take their first sampling a week prior to CO?
Or a sample is required to obtain CO or something.
Yep.
You know where I'm going with that, Dave.
So.
Good idea.
Because that gives us our baseline. Certain things, there may be certain numbers that, may trigger standards. I just don't know them off the top of my head. And my biggest concern is that we're not increasing any amounts of anything into the system.
Okay. I know they talk about a minimum 80% total suspended solids removal for sediment.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
That's annually. Can you explain that real quick?
Yeah. So that's literally for the entire site, and it's just consistently. So yeah, it's pretty much annually. So you do street sweeping, that accounts for a certain percentage. You do you'll have like other things such as cleaning out your infiltration system. Each thing accounts for typically certain percentages. So ideally and truly too, once a site is established, you shouldn't have too much going in anyway. A lot of it's going to be from salting of the parking lot, of your walkways, things like, or sanding with your salt. A lot of that, will get in there, and that's what you got to try to remove. Once it's fully established, the runoff is very, very minor.
Okay.
Are there any? Can we add? Oh, you're gonna do this one first.
So, yeah.
Let's start.
One more time.
So I just changed the wording for this condition to read. same calendar year, no later than May 31st. Collection of the aforementioned compliance samples shall be referred to the receipt of a letter of substantial completion with an additional sample collected and reported to the land use department before issuance of a zoning compliance certificate.
That works for me.
James, does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay,
Okay,
Like it.
awesome.
Nico.
You had the question about natural fertilizer? Salt, I don't know that question. What do you mean?
Can we, is there any,
We cannot mandate how
Precedent
much salt they use or do not use.
we can't?
No, we went through this before because we're setting.
We could.
No, because then we're setting the precedent for one precedent for the town, one precedent for our homeowner. You know, we went through that conversation where we cannot.
If you're telling,
Make a recommendation as a, in the Wetlands Commission.
If
You can make a recommendation, but you can't make it a stipulation. I don't think. He was.
I would say if you were to force the applicants to use or to have an application rate that's less than what the town uses, your approval would be facing an appeal. Because the applicant would be saying, well, you let the town apply this much salt, why do we have to apply less? That's not, doesn't
Right, I
look
understand.
fair.
So can we at least,
Water.
can we
So
put a,
it's too much. And the system will know because it's being monitored.
Right. They can use as much as they want, as long as it's not coming out the other end. Quite honestly.
Obviously, it's in the applicant's interest
that's-
to use the minimum amount of salt possible.
it is?
Because you don't want to be wasting product if.
It's expensive. I guess so.
But again,
Just think
if the
people are-
system's designed and working properly,
I don't know
but
if they-
again, this is all conversation we had last time, why we,
It's too expensive.
right, and this all conversation we had last time, why we monitor it, because.
With us, we can use a ton of salt in our parking lot because it's expensive as hell.
Hmm.
So our lands, our person that takes care of it doesn't wanna put a lot of. They'll use more sand.
You're basically controlling it by doing the water sample, because there's too much salt, you gotta go back to them, say, your system's not handling it, you have to. Do something with the system or cut down salt, let's think, salt's expensive, cut down salt.
And they don't want people sitting and falling in the
Right.
parking lot, it's a liability, so they're gonna wanna find that.
Right.
Side.
That's why the
will get
system is
salt
designed so.
on your- in the actual parking area, but more on the sidewalks than anything.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys aren't worried about it, that, I mean, that'll help.
This is what the reporting is for.
Right.
This is
Yeah.
why you receive the report, so that way you can see an anomaly in the numbers. If you see that spike that James is referring to, you ask about it.
Right.
Because between the two of us, I imagine if it's not readily obvious, we'll be able to figure out what it means and we'll tell you.
Right.
If there's something wrong that needs to be fixed, whether it's the use of the salts or something else.
And that's why.
We would only see a spike if it was after a specific rainfall, a specific. time of year.
But this is why we asked, and this is why we got a whole conversation of monitoring the output. To see, because it was salt in the fertilizers, and then we got in a conversation how often, because what time of year is best, and that's why we got the dates that we got, so. That's why.
If I could interject from
Yeah.
Wonderland out here, Nico, you're in the same boat as me as the new commissioner. I think that what you're trying to do is make a perfect outcome for an imperfect situation. And it's difficult for us to make perfect decisions. So we have to make the best decision with the information that's granted to us. And that's what the whole process was for. I'm very uncomfortable with certain things individually, but I think it's our duty to make the best decision we can make with all the information that we've requested and been granted. And if we still don't feel comfortable, we can abstain. There's no reason that we can't abstain from voting if we never do. But remember, we're never going to be 100% convinced that we're doing that we're making a decision to perfection, because there is in no way, shape, or form we could do anything construction wise without somehow impacting some sort of a naturally occurring environment, because it's human intervention, period. So that there's no way that we're not going to have an impact. It's mitigating it to the best of our abilities. And the fact of the matter is construction is going to happen. So we have to just do our duties to make sure that it has the least amount of impact humanly possible within the regulations that we're allowed to uphold. So,
So when I vote, when I vote in favor of an application, it's because I feel there will not be impact the way it's planned. Okay, adverse impact to the wetlands. If you feel there will be, you vote whichever way you feel most comfortable. Now, and I'm not just talking this application, let's say it fails, let's say an application fails, then what's the next step for the applicant? He has several things, including in past applications that failed, it goes to court. And you have to explain why it failed. You know, you can't be like, well, I don't know what's gonna happen in 4 years, so that's why I voted no. Well, you know, that won't hold up. Or, hey, you know what, it's an auto mechanic business, they're dumping oil down the drain and there's no separator, well, that may be upheld. You know, you have to be able to, you know, just be comfortable and justify. Absolutely.
This commission is working to render the best decision they can with the evidence that you have received, that you've requested for over 3 months.
And we wouldn't be comfortable. You guys don't feel like we would be comfortable in a court justifying a denial of this application?
I feel there's my own. I will vote in favor of it because I feel I have enough information, and that information to me shows we will not have an adverse impact on the wetland. That's how I'm looking at it. That's how I'm looking at it. Now, don't get me wrong, I mean, if there are train tracks going through and then the tractor trailer dumps over in the middle of the parking lot, you can't see that. You know, but you have to, under the normal operating conditions as the building is specified, I feel comfortable that there will be no, that's why I am voting the way I am voting. Now,
I don't, yeah.
okay, there's other members on this commission, I may be the only one that feels that way and everyone else will vote. That's why it's not one person saying, and that's why there's, you know, that's why, you know, there's so many commission members, so you can make those decisions.
Can I ask you guys who've been on the committee for a while another question?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have the answer. Is like, so if I do feel uncomfortable with an application for various reasons.
Right.
Which I think I hopefully would be able to
Okay.
put in writing and like show in court.
Right,
all that
okay.
stuff. Okay. Then this is gonna have a significant.
Well, you and a lawyer would, but okay.
Well,
Thank you. That'd be good.
what expertise would you be basing your decision on?
Well, that goes
I mean,
into
I
a
could
whole,
get into it. I could write it all down, and create a case, which is basically what I tried.
then you would vote against it.
Yeah.
But it,
Oh,
in
so
order,
that's my
that's
question.
the
If
whole
I vote
point.
against it, can that be used against me later by these developers?
No.
I am not a
No.
lawyer, I could.
All right.
You're at that stage.
But I don't know whether I
No.
should abstain.
No,
You're at that stage.
we're not,
No, if you
we're
feel
not-
strongly about
we're not going
something,
into
don't
legal
abstain,
realm.
Vote against it.
That's- I'm not, I'm
Yeah,
not.
Right, but I don't
sure.
want to become, be held.
Nico. Each decision the commission makes is in a vacuum. And I know, the terminology may not be the best to describe that, but it's a site-specific decision. Nothing that you do from this decision, unless it's a modification for this property, it doesn't apply anywhere else. There's no, if you're worried about a track record, if that's.
Yeah.
If
And this is gonna come
I'm,
back later, his attorneys, and
No,
he
every-
voted down this project, you know, he voted.
No,
This is-
every
this
application.
is-
No.
All right, hold on, first of all, that's
Exactly.
again why you're not alone. Let's say there's an application out there. You're totally against, and I'm not referring to this one already. Let's say there's that, okay, well, there's gotta be other members on the commission that vote against it as well for it to fail. Okay, or let's say you're for it, everyone else is against it, well, it doesn't pass, that's why you're going together when it's night as a whole. You're not going together as a single person. Can they say, hey, Nico's really tough, that, you know, personal point of view on them, but I'm not a lawyer to be able to say, you know, any legal. I would say-
If there is one thing that would get carried over, it is your knowledge
Right.
and your experience. every application that you review, every exhibit that you look at, testimony that you receive. It's something that you can reference in your mind and you can always state as reference when you're looking at a future application, be like, hey, this is something similar I saw in the past. I remember this. Can you give me context to compare these two?
Like,
That's-
are we gonna have
that's-
some text change?
Right, that's a legitimate question to ask. And that's something that is reasonable for
Right.
the chairman to ask for every application.
Like now you have knowledge on how, I forget what it's called now. but
Bioretention.
Bioretention works, so you build that now. Here's the thing, you have to vote how you're comfortable voting based on the information that you receive, not on a personal belief
Or what ifs.
or what if,
And,
you know.
and you had, we all had the opportunity to ask all of our questions
Right.
and they had the opportunity to address them. So if you still have outstanding concerns that you didn't bring to the table, then correct me if I'm wrong, but that's on you for not bringing them to the table.
But you also can discuss some,
No?
this, you also could discuss some during the, I'm going to call deliberations of the, once like public hearing or whatever review, you discuss your concerns with us. So, like I said, I'm in favor of this thing. If you're not, you could say, well, why are you in favor? Or what about this? What about that? We've never done water sampling before, but you have a concern and you voice that concern and you convince the rest of the committee members, including myself, that it's a good thing for this application to do. Same thing, if you have a reason that you feel it shouldn't be, voice that, so all the committee members, because everybody has to vote. Okay, that's seated, and from that, that determines the outcome of the application. It's not Nico saying, this is what's happening. That's why, if you ever have an application in front of you that you're connected with, why you should abstain, because you may have adverse impact on it, positive, negative, but that's why it's a committee. It's not a single person that's saying, nope. That's why the town is set up where,
Sometimes I feel like we're too much in a vacuum, that I don't talk to you guys enough and like.
well, then you
All right.
talk here.
Let's
Yeah.
not,
But let's focus on this application.
yeah, let's not
Okay, what are
digress
you gonna
too
say? I want to-
far from
What was good?
the task at hand.
Sorry to say, I was trying to say.
No,
I wanna vote-
as
my
long as
instinct is to
you're,
vote
as
my
long
way.
as you're facing your decision, a yay or a nay, or an abstention, whatever you want to do. On the material presented in front of you, you're covered, you're good. As long
And
as. you-
based upon your regulations.
And not going, God, I can't stand that developer, I'm not approving anything of them. That's when they come after you, okay? So everything's presented in front of you, you've gone over it, and you're making a decision based on that. You're fine, don't worry about anything else. If you say no, I've said no to applicants. Where everyone else has said yes, or a couple of us have said no. It's fine,
Because part of me is still.
that's why you're here.
Yeah, part of me is
That's
still trying to navigate the legal waters too, and I don't know enough yet to not be like scared about it. And be like, oh, am I putting myself in jeopardy or the committee in jeopardy or whatever, later based on.
Say no, 'cause
Dave,
you-
would it be possible?
But if I know that you guys are gonna vote for it, and then I already know that I was.
Do not base your decision on how
Why
you're
even
gonna
have
vote.
to say anything?
You
know what I
could
mean?
abstain, you
can, but why? If you feel that strongly, vote no.
you're not
If you
voting
feel strongly
yourself.
about something, you should be able to.
You're
vote
not
no.
denying or approving an application
Yeah.
yourself, you're doing it with the committee.
I've probably irritated David by saying no
Yeah.
to a couple of things.
No, you guys need to work this out.
You're not doing it, you're not approving or denying an application on your own, it's the committee doing it. They're not gonna be
Like
like,
just having me on record being like the no. or
okay,
like,
so,
whatever.
So I'm sure
Okay.
there's a lot of people that would respect that.
yeah.
Yeah, no, screw that. Like, be firm in your convictions.
The
Very firm in your
developer
convictions.
can come back to me later in some legal courtroom.
No.
I'm
be
not
like,
a legal
He was a
person.
no, and.
No,
Okay,
No.
that's all. That's great.
Absolutely not.
Just checking.
No. Dave's here also to help guide us to, that's why I look at him making motions and stuff like that, I word it right, because,
Yeah,
make sure it's done correctly. But again. You have to vote based on the information, like Greg said, that was presented to you, leaving your biases out of it. Meaning, whatever that bias may be the land, the developer,
Yeah, I don't wanna worry about any of it.
the public input that's not related to wetlands. You know, there's development that down the road, years from now, may be very contested by the public, but it meets the regulations, and you basically have to go by the regulations, not like people saying, you know, there's too many people living here, you know, that can't factor into your bias, even though you may feel the same, you have to go by your regulations. You know, or the same thing, they may want to put the beautiful thing near the wetlands, which would be great, you love it, but it doesn't meet the criteria, then you have to, you know, go by your criteria again, not, you know, your bias has to be out of it. Once your bias is out of it, you listen to the information that you've been given to you, the expert testimony that's been given to you from both the town and the applicant, and you can make that decision. Now, doing that, the thing, you may think, all right, here's a question I have, what about this, what about that? You can't say, okay, well, let's just keep it going, because in a year I may have another question. You can't do that.
Yeah.
That just hold them hostage.
Yeah.
You know,
Try
it's
it.
like, at this point, have all my questions been answered? Yes, and you know what? You may not know everything, I know, I'll tell you right now,
That's all. It's
I
just a
don't know
lot.
the type of trees or anything, but you do.
So
So,
we're
hey,
stronger
guess
together.
what? That's your expertise, so I
That's-
rely on
that's-
that.
and That's why it's nice having a committee, because we all have our own.
And that's what it is. So you could sit there. Let's say she was gonna plant something that's, you know, non-native or whatever. And I'll be like, yeah, okay, but you pick up on it and say, hold on a second, you should have planted that. Well, I hear that and I can understand, I can make my decision based on input I'm getting from you as well.
Can we circle back to the?
We've done so many circles. Where do you wanna go?
Yeah, we
Does
should.
anyone have any additional comments? that they
I am
would
good.
make?
Nico, you were the last one. Any
Good to
more?
go, good to go.
So,
Good to go.
so,
Okay.
so has everyone looked at the wording?
Yes,
for all 9 of the draft conditions?
yes.
Yep.
Okay,
Anyone want to make a motion?
so. Trying to. So this motion is being based on a modification of a previous approval. That's
Yes.
the application that's coming before you.
Right.
You're doing it with 9 conditions.
Yes.
And you're basing it on your 3 reasons as listed in the draft resolution of approval.
Okay. Does anyone want to make that motion? I gotta remember that. Okay, I make a motion.
I'm not close enough to look at Dave for guidance tonight. I'm sorry.
I will make.
It's all you, Pat.
I make a motion that we approve the modification of this permit. Based on the, what's it on, 9 conditions and 3. Reasons for approval as stated in the draft letter of approval dated April 24th, 2000. Is it dated April 24th? April 24th, 2023. Okay,
I second.
you have a second. Okay, and do I go any discussion at this point? Nope, okay, so I'll be hearing your minds.
It's yay, nay, or abstain at this point.
Kevin, yay, nay, or abstain on the motion?
Yay.
Hey, Laura,
Yay.
Greg?
Yay.
Yay. Danielle, you're not seated. Nico?
I'm still a no, it did not meet my criteria for decision.
All right, so motion carries. I believe it's
4 to 1.
4-1. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
very good.
A lot of hard work and good work on that. Thank you, everyone. You got any I'm sorry, regular meeting minutes, agenda. Oh, sorry, that's a headache. Staff comments and reports. Any comments, Dave?
If I had any, I forgot what they were.
Awesome, that's great when it's after that. Commissioner comments, anyone on the commission have anything they like to bring up, comments, concerns? Okay, I would like to just say one thing. James, I appreciate you being here at these meetings prior to you being in the town. I don't think the engineer, the town engineer regularly attended these meetings, and I find it extremely helpful. And I know it takes time to do so, so greatly appreciate it. Thank you for doing
I
it.
second that. I lean on your knowledge a lot.
No,
So,
no problem. And Dave can tell you, I check in with him before every meeting. You need me there? Yeah or nay?
So glad to hear.
Just go with yes.
yeah. You can assume the answer is going to be yes, unless there's nothing on the agenda. You're a wealth of knowledge, and I appreciate you sharing it.
Yep, not a
I do
problem.
appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, any other comments, Commissioner? Okay, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Yes. Motion carries.
Sorry I couldn't be there in person, guys.